Solminati Academy stands tall as a meritocratic institution where ambitious young adults gather to reach their full potential. Nozomu Bontis reflects on his 2-year journey while resting in the grass, carrying a sword by his side. 2 years ago, he entered the prestigious academy alongside his closest childhood friends to leave everything behind. Ken Naudus and the beautiful Lisa Hounds were his inseparable companions and lovers before entering the school. Long before the academy, Lisa and her parents moved into their quiet little village, beginning their story together. Life in the peaceful farming village remains sluggish and predictable, offering little excitement despite the fertile lands. A young Nozomu spends a quiet afternoon alone, focused on fishing by the tranquil water's edge. Suddenly, a young girl approaches him with a shy greeting, nervously asking how he is doing today. Surprised by the sudden visitor, the boy turns around while clutching his freshly caught fish and rod. The girl offers a gentle and heartwarming smile that instantly puts the young boy at ease. Her eyes sparkle with kindness and curiosity as she gazes directly at her new acquaintance. Nozomu blushes deeply, his wide eyes reflecting a mixture of shock and burgeoning fascination for the girl. Stuttering over his words, he confirms his availability to chat as the girl laughs at his awkwardness. She introduces herself as Lisa Hounds, explaining her mother's decision to return to the village after tragedy. Curious about her past, Nozomu asks if she visited any exciting places during her long travels. Her father was a brave adventurer, a role dedicated to exploring the vast and dangerous unknown world. Adventurers serve as pioneers in new lands, though their path is often paved with extreme and life-threatening dangers. While Nozomu lacked a desire for risk, he found himself utterly captivated by Lisa's tales of past heroes. Lisa continues to laugh and share stories, her joy radiating as they lose track of the passing time. From that first meeting, their relationship blossoms into a deep bond that eventually evolves into something more. Standing on the pier, Lisa announces her decision to join Solminati Academy to become an adventurer like her father. Nozomu looks up, resolve forming in his mind, and decides to accompany her on this life-changing journey. Lisa stares in shock, her eyes wide as she processes his sudden declaration to leave his home. Surprised by his choice, she questions if he is serious and asks about his family's farming obligations. He acknowledges that he is an only child in a family of farmers, making his departure quite significant. Despite knowing his father might oppose him, Nozomu remains determined to follow the path his heart desires. He focuses on his resolve, closing his eyes as he makes a life-changing decision for his future. Boldly declaring his love, he vows to be her support and go wherever her dreams may lead her. Lisa is moved to tears by his selfless devotion, looking at him with deep gratitude and disbelief. Nozomu blushes intensely, his face turning bright red as he stands by his honest and emotional confession. Looking away shyly, Lisa feels a surge of happiness from his sincere words of support and commitment. Overwhelmed with joy, she tearfully thanks him for choosing to be by her side through everything. They share a tender, emotional kiss on the pier, sealing their promise to face the future together. Back in the present, Nozomu lies on the grass, reminiscing about the beautiful promise they once made. The ringing of the academy bell pulls him out of his daydream, signaling the start of his reality. This institution was born from a demonic invasion that nearly wiped out humanity 20 long years ago. Funded by all nations, the school trains students regardless of social standing, basing status solely on merit. Once at the top, Nozomu now finds himself an outcast, looked down upon by peers as grades slip. In this harsh environment, every right and social standing depends entirely on the grades displayed for all. As he walks down the hall, cruel whispers follow him, with students mocking his continued presence as a failure. Nozomu stares down at his desk, which is vandalized with cruel, deeply carved insults from his classmates. He looks toward the back of the room where a group of students is openly snickering at him. They mock his presence, telling his pathetic self to just give up and quit the academy for good. Sweating and under immense pressure, he endures more verbal abuse about being a constant pain to everyone else. A bully dismisses him as bottom-of-the-barrel trash, insisting that staying in class is far beyond his capabilities. Among the antagonists stands Mars Dickens, a powerful student who carries a massive blade on his back. Known for a hair-trigger temper, Mars frequently picks fights with anyone he can rile up, regardless of rank. The aggressive student looms over the area, his gaze fixed intensely on his next unfortunate target. Mars approaches Nozomu's desk, taking notice of the many insults scrawled across the wooden surface. His expression turns menacing as he prepares to escalate the confrontation within the quiet classroom. He taunts Nozomu for his silence, adding that even his childhood friend has finally abandoned him. Fury boils within Nozomu as he glares back with wide, trembling eyes, barely containing his rising anger. The surrounding students continue to laugh and jeer, enjoying the spectacle of the lowly student being cornered. Gritting his teeth in frustration, he keeps his head down while the harassment continues to intensify around him. Infuriated by being ignored, Mars slams his fist down and demands to know why he is being shunned. The force of the assault sends Nozomu crashing to the floor amidst a mess of books and furniture. Mars prepares to strike the fallen student again, his face twisted in a look of pure aggression. Suddenly, the classroom door slides open as a stern authority figure arrives to interrupt the violent scene. Mr. Henry Var demands an explanation for the chaos, causing the bully to freeze in his tracks immediately. Mars quickly makes up a weak excuse about helping his classmate, while Nozomu slowly picks himself up. Teacher tells the unruly students to handle their personal business after class, claiming they are wasting his time. He sternly orders Mars to return to his seat immediately to restore order within the tense classroom. Defiantly, Mars snaps back at the instructor, telling him to shut his mouth and calling him a weed. The teacher calmly retorts that if he is a weed, his student must be mere filth being taught. Mars narrows his eyes, clearly agitated by the teacher's sharp and condescending counterattack during the lecture. With a final dismissive glance, the arrogant student walks past Nozomu to resume his position in the class. Nozomu remains seated with his head bowed while Mars strides away, leaving a heavy silence behind them. Closing the confrontation, Mr. Henri Var orders Mars to his office later and begins the day's formal lesson. The instructor slams his heavy book onto the desk with a loud bang to command everyone's full attention. He explains that magic involves coarsening one's mental power to manifest elements and create various beneficial effects. Historically, ritual magic served as an offering to the gods to bring rain for crops and sustain life. The lecture continues, identifying ritual and chanting as the two primary methods used in modern magical practices today. Announcement is made that tomorrow's session will involve experiments with different catalysts to produce specific magical results. Cruelly, the teacher informs Nozomu that he is excused from participating due to his lowly black tag status. After the boy quietly acknowledges the dismissal, he is ordered to stay sidelined and avoid hindering others. Nearby classmates snicker at Nozomu's humiliation, clearly enjoying his public exclusion from the upcoming practical lesson. Turning his harsh gaze to the others, the teacher remarks that they aren't much better than the outcast. Nozomu bears the weight of his low grades in silence, sweating under the pressure of his peers' constant judgment. He reminisces about Lisa, the gifted red-haired princess who quickly rose to the top of the academy scores. Ultimately, he realizes he could never match her drive or live up to the immense expectations placed upon him. Nozomu struggles against unrealistic expectations, pushing himself despite falling behind in both combat training and academics. He remembers a time when friends and a lover supported his desire to grow stronger for their future. Suddenly, a mysterious handicap halts his progress entirely, preventing any further improvement of his innate magical abilities. Hostility rises as peers begin bullying him daily, witnessing his growth come to a complete and sudden standstill. Despite the setbacks, Lisa remains steadfastly by his side, increasing their training sessions to help him overcome his plateau. Her unwavering desire to support him provides a flicker of hope during his most difficult and trying moments. Inspired by her loyalty, he pushes himself harder than ever before, refusing to give up on their shared promise. This supportive dynamic ends abruptly during the summer of their first year, shattering their once close and inseparable bond. Lisa eventually reaches her breaking point, declaring their efforts useless before coldly saying her final goodbye to him. They part ways in the hallway, the distance between them growing as their former relationship crumbles into nothingness. Devastated by the abandonment, Nozomu is left in a state of shock, unable to process her sudden departure. He clings to the memory of her smiling face and the support she once offered him so freely. A sense of profound loss and confusion fills his gaze as he faces his new, lonely reality alone. Without warning, a malicious rumor spreads throughout the academy, falsely accusing him of cheating on his beloved Lisa. Though he vehemently denies the allegations, no one in the school believes his word against the popular narrative. Treated like garbage by the student body, he becomes an underachiever with no apparent future in the academy. The bullying intensifies as others join Mars in using physical violence against the now isolated and defenseless young man. Attempting one last conversation, he is met only with a cold, hatred-filled stare from the girl he once loved. He continues training until his body collapses, desperately clinging to the vow they made on that distant pier. Exhausted and battered, he walks through the academy alone, a shadow of the person he once hoped to become. Nozomu reflects on his failures, feeling the weight of the social isolation within the academy walls. His eyes reveal a flicker of lingering determination beneath a layer of deep, crushing despair. From a distance, he watches Ken and Lisa walking together, their laughter echoing his lonely heart. Ken notice, once his equal, has achieved record-breaking growth while training alongside their childhood friend. He recalls hearing how Ken comforted Lisa during her heartbreak, eventually leading to their new relationship. The sight of Lisa smiling brightly while training with Ken fills him with a hollow, stinging pain. Together, the new pair dominates every mock battle with synchronized strikes and overwhelming magical prowess. It becomes painfully clear that he no longer belongs in her heart or her brilliant future. Desperate, he retreats to the shadows to train alone against a battered wooden dummy. Until exhausted, the instructor announces a series of mock battles, personally pairing students to test their combat readiness. He explains that Ki is an Eastern style focusing on internal energy to enhance physical power. This academy serves as a central hub for studying ancient magic excavated from ruins across the continent. Mars Dickens looms over him, once again spewing insults and labeling him as bottom-line trash. It is revealed that they are partners for the exercise, much to the bully's arrogant delight. Mars swings his massive blade with terrifying speed, creating powerful gusts of wind around the arena. Confident in his strength, he notes that his enchanted uniform provides more than enough protection. Nozomu prepares to draw his own weapon, a unique sword hailing from a distant island nation. He reveals his katana, a specialized blade capable of incredible feats when used with master technique. The bully taunts him to begin the fight while Nozomu focuses entirely on his raw swordsmanship. Mars sneers at his opponent, fully intent on humiliating the student he considers bottom-tier trash. Nozomu grits his teeth as Mars insults him, declaring the fight a total waste of his precious time. The instructor signals the start, and Mars immediately lunges forward with his massive, heavy blade held high. Steel clashes violently, sending a loud crack through the air as Nozomu barely parries the overwhelming force. A swift slice catches Nozomu off guard, sending a sharp sting through his body during the intense exchange. Mars mocks his opponent's lack of speed, relentlessly pursuing the struggle with heavy and blindingly fast strikes. Despite the pressure, Nozomu maintains his focus, watching the trajectory of the giant sword with keen eyes. High-speed movements blur the combatants as they dance across the arena. Another powerful slice tears through the air, forcing Nozomu to use every ounce of his strength. The katana catches the greatsword with a sharp metallic chunk. Retreating to gain distance, Nozomu repositions himself while the aggressive bully continues his relentless forward momentum. Low to the ground, Nozomu prepares for a counterattack as Mars readies another crushing blow from above. Mars screams in a battle frenzy, putting his weight behind a devastating swing aimed directly at Nozomu. Grunting in pain, the young swordsman barely deflects the strike, feeling the jarring impact in his arms. A flurry of attacks follows, the sound of clashing steel echoing loudly throughout the watchful arena. Frustrated by the stalemate, Mars growls in rage as the pressure between their blades reaches a breaking point. The air whistles as the massive blade sweeps across the battlefield, barely missing Nozomu by a hair. One more desperate clash rings out, pushing Nozomu to the very brink of his physical endurance. Laughing manically, Mars taunts his foe to surrender, believing the outcome is already decided. Exhausted and sweating, Nozomu senses a shift in the atmosphere as he reflects on the nature of chi. Mars begins to channel his life force, manifesting a dark aura that dramatically enhances his physical abilities. Nozomu desperately parries the enhanced strikes while Mars continues his relentless assault with a dark, boiling aura. Visible frustration crosses the bully's face as he clicks his tongue. Clearly annoyed by the persistent defense, a sudden massive impact sends Nozomu reeling backward across the arena, the force of the blow echoing loudly. Blades clash repeatedly in a chaotic flurry of steel and sparks, each strike more desperate than the last. Mars channels even more power into his greatsword, his eyes narrowing with a murderous intent during the swing. The sound of metal grinding against metal fills the air as both fighters push their bodies to their limits. Gritting his teeth through the pain, Nozomu struggles to remain standing under the weight of the heavy attacks. Losing his patience entirely, Mars screams a vulgar insult while demanding that his opponent simply disappear from sight. The battle reaches a fever pitch as Mars declares he has had enough of the drawn-out and exhausting struggle. Peering through his bangs, the young swordsman focuses every remaining bit of his concentration on the approaching blade. A deafening crash resounds as a powerful strike connects, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris everywhere. Violent exchanges continue in a blur of motion, leaving both combatants battered and gasping for much-needed air. Nozomu attempts a swift countermove, but the sheer physical difference between them proves to be a significant obstacle. Consumed by rage, Mars bellows for his opponent to just die already while swinging his weapon with abandon. A sharp cracking sound echoes through the arena as a crucial defensive line is finally and completely shattered. The massive greatsword delivers a finishing blow that sends the exhausted Nozomu flying through the open air. Crashing hard against the ground, he loses his weapon while Mars dismisses him as a mere annoying pest. Lying defeated and broken, the young man reflects on the pointlessness of the one-sided and brutal confrontation. He slowly tries to find his footing amidst the impact craters, his vision blurred by exhaustion and physical pain. Silence falls over the arena as the dust settles, leaving only the dark and scarred earth behind. Nozomu lies in darkness, his body trembling from the severe injuries sustained during the brutal mock battle. Coughing violently, the young man clutches his aching stomach while enduring waves of intense physical agony. He eventually awakens within the academy infirmary, greeted by the school's dedicated doctor, Norn Altina. Feeling slightly lightheaded, he listens as Norn explains she has already treated the wounds on his torso. Expressing his gratitude, Nozomu admits he feels an immeasurable debt for her constant and necessary care. Suddenly, his homeroom teacher, Miss Henri, bursts through the door with an energetic and loud entrance. Miss Henri, responsible for the 10th class, checks on her student with an expressive and concerned face. The doctor sighs, reminding the lively teacher to maintain professional honorifics while they are on campus. Henri dismisses the formality, pointing toward the bewildered boy as proof that there are no witnesses around. Exasperated by her friend's lack of decorum, Norn rubs her temple and expresses her growing frustration. The teacher leans uncomfortably close to ask how he feels, causing Nozomu to blush in sheer embarrassment. Startled by the sudden proximity, he nervously asks his teacher to please step back just a bit. Norn interrupts the playful moment to list his specific injuries, including a concussion and several painful bruises. Ignoring the pain, Nozomu sits up on the bed while his two caretakers watch him with curiosity. He gazes out the infirmary window, realizing with a heavy heart that the day's classes are already finished. Gathering his resolve, he thanks both women for their help and prepares for a quick departure. Miss Henry stops him, asking if he still intends to head into the dangerous forest tonight. Her playful demeanor vanishes, replaced by a look of deep worry as she awaits his inevitable answer. She warns him that even skilled knights struggle there, suggesting he find some partners for protection. Asserting that he is fine, the determined student excuses himself and heads out into the evening alone. Miss Henry screams in frustration as Nozomu runs off while she is still trying to give him advice. Narrator explains that an incident involving a manifested ability caused Nozomu to fall to the very bottom ranking. Special skills known as abilities provide various benefits, but the Academy still hasn't discovered why they manifest. Nozomu possesses a rare ability called suppression, which provides no benefit and instead severely hinders his overall growth. This permanent debuff suppresses his physical capabilities, making even item-boosted magic and chi enhancements significantly weaker than normal. Norn Altina reflects on how Nozomu always rushes off into the woods alone as soon as his wounds heal. The doctor acknowledges that Henri's care is helping him open up. Even though his dangerous habits remain unchanged, Miss Henry admits she can only help refine his combat technique since his magical skills are completely suppressed. She recalls the terrifying mock battle where Nozomu nearly gained the advantage using technique, magic, and chi simultaneously. Henry suspects his latent abilities might actually be superior to regular students if they could only be properly refined. Dr. Norn agrees, noting his body is clearly well-trained, despite his poor academic standing and low combat ranking. A thorough physical examination reveals a body covered in scars from a rigorous and incredibly intense daily training regimen. The doctor confesses she often considers quitting her job because witnessing such young people suffering is too painful. Miss Honri looks on with shock and a slight blush as the doctor shares her deep emotional burden. Norn emphasizes that the current circumstances surrounding the boy are completely abnormal for someone of his young age. They watch from the window as Nozomu disappears into the distance, pondering if he has reached his limit. Henry wonders if there is a path to power that only Nozomu can find on his own through effort. Beyond the academy lies the forest of Spasm, a deep and ancient woods that completely surrounds the city. Students and citizens risk their lives hunting monsters and gathering rare resources within the dense, overgrown wilderness area. Despite the blessings of the rich forest, powerful beasts kill or cause many to vanish without a trace every year. Arkazam City was established 10 years ago with Solmanatai Academy, serving as its central and primary landmark. This prestigious institution functions as the auxiliary heart of the town, anchoring the various surrounding urban sectors. The northern zone houses the political and administrative offices, where only high-ranking aristocrats and personnel are permitted. In the eastern sector, the civilian district contains the student dormitories and acts as the general residential hub. Vital to the local economy, the southern commercial area hosts the market and the city's influential Adventurers Guild. Workshops of skilled artisans and blacksmiths populate the western area, where masters from across the globe practice their craft. The circular city is surrounded by the vast forest of Spasm, which houses the highway connecting all urban districts. This blank forest once served as a neutral buffer zone between the Cremazioni Empire and the Horsuina Kingdom. Powerful magical beasts roam the deepest reaches of the woods, far away from the urban center and main roads. Deep in the wilderness, Nozomu wields his katana with conviction and determination during a rigorous secret training session. He gasps for air as he struggles to keep up with the intense pace set by his partner. Suddenly, a powerful strike sends him flying backward as she remarks that his current effort is simply not enough. Crashing hard, he quickly rolls away to avoid being cornered by his opponent's relentless and high-speed assault. A swift blade swipe whistles through the trees as the sparring match continues with increasing intensity and speed. Nozomu maneuvers through the underbrush, desperately searching for an opening against the hooded figure's perfect and fluid defense. Utilizing his internal energy, he executes a chi instant dash to launch a blindingly fast attack toward his foe. The mysterious warrior moves with supernatural grace, effortlessly dodging his charge and appearing instantly behind his unguarded back. She coldly remarks that he is still far too slow, while her own blade begins to glow ominously. A metallic sound resonates through the clearing as she readies her weapon to demonstrate a high-level form of combat. She explains the Phantom Blade, a technique using compressed chi to create a powerful and unavoidable phantom slash. The mysterious warrior's Phantom Blade technique effortlessly carves through the massive, ancient trees of the surrounding forest. A massive trunk shatters apart with a loud crack, demonstrating the incredible speed and versatility of the compressed strike. Focusing her energy, the master watches her students' movements with a sharp, unrelenting gaze beneath her dark hood. Nozomu braces himself, his eyes following the lethal trajectory of the blade as it whistles through the air. Made of dense, compressed chi, the invisible attack remains nearly impossible for any normal student to see or avoid. Another violent clash of steel erupts, sending tremors through the ground as the master tests Nozomu's raw physical strength. Locked in a desperate struggle, the young swordsman exerts every ounce of effort to keep his master's blade back. Drenched in sweat, Nozomu shouts at his teacher, demanding to know if she is actually trying to kill him. She stoically observes his exhaustion, noting that he left himself wide open and would have died in real combat. Maintaining the heavy pressure on his blade, she warns that a true enemy would never hesitate to strike twice. A powerful shove sends Nozomu skidding backward across the dirt, his boots leaving long trails in the forest floor. The hooded woman executes a spinning follow-up, her weapon creating a blur of silver light that threatens his defense. Barely regaining his balance, the young man blocks the strike just in time to avoid a direct, lethal hit. High-speed exchanges continue to echo through the clearing, pushing the trainee to the very limit of his physical endurance. Releasing a fierce battle cry, Nozomu swings his katana with desperate conviction, hoping to finally find a small opening. He lunges forward with all his remaining might, determined to fulfill the solemn vow he made long ago. Suddenly, a heavy thud interrupts his momentum, catching the boy completely off guard as the atmosphere shifts once again. The sound of clinking metal resonates as his weapon is knocked aside, leaving him defenseless before his superior opponent. Appearing instantly before his eyes, the master declares the duel over while looking down at his vulnerable, sweating face. Exhausted and gasping for air, Nozomu huffs in defeat while the woman stands perfectly poised in the quiet clearing. Shino, the secret master, looms over a defeated Nozomu as he finally admits he must give up. Standing in the dense forest, Shino advises him to find gaps in an opponent's defense to end fights. The stern master critiques his previous strike as a half-hearted attempt, claiming anyone could perform such a feat. Nozomu looks on dejectedly while Shino explains her ability to anticipate his movements by feeling his body shift. Shino suddenly ends the session, noting the late hour and the approaching time for their evening meal. In the clearing surrounded by felled trees, the skilled woman gestures for them to finish for the day. Nozomu tiredly sheaths his unique katana, the metallic click echoing through the quiet and shadowy woods. The exhausted student vows to do anything for his master, his voice reflecting his deep physical fatigue. Shino playfully suggests that he should get her whatever she wants, causing Nozomu to react with genuine shock. Feeling the pressure of her intensity, Nozomu privately decides to leave before his master's training actually kills him. Looking worn down and covered in sweat, the young man prepares to make his way back home. He navigates through the massive roots of the old forest, moving with practice but weary agility. Watching him from the foliage, Shino acknowledges that despite his struggles, his combat skills are gradually improving. The master reminisces about her initial meeting with the boy in a treacherous part of the woods. This dangerous area, filled with powerful magical beasts, was rarely visited by ordinary people due to high risk. Drawn by the rhythmic sound of a swinging blade, she discovered Nozomu training in complete isolation. She recalls his pale, lifeless appearance, and the way the skin on his hands was painfully peeling off. Nozomu declares his desperate need for strength after being treated like trash and abandoned by his love. Shino watches the boy's unwavering determination, realizing he is pushing his limits simply to earn others' respect. The master stares into his haunted eyes, noting the brutal desperation driving him to destroy himself for status. Shino reflects on Nozomu's lifeless, clouded eyes, which remind her of a starving beggar on death's door. Seeing such a hollow look in someone so young deeply pains her heart while she tries to focus. Suddenly, vicious demon dogs emerge from the shadows, hungry and ready to hunt the exhausted young boy down. These man-eating beasts are low-ranked demons, yet a single bite remains lethal enough to end a life. Master Shino tells him to die as a warrior if he truly has a death wish for training. Reflecting on the past, nearly a year and a half has passed since that fateful encounter began. Her blade possesses enough power to slash through solid iron as if it were nothing but thin paper. While Nozomu's sword lacks her overwhelming force, it is crafted with equal sharpness and remarkable density. She believes it is only a matter of time before he surpasses her, despite his sealed innate abilities. His inability to improve at the academy stems from the school's focus on students with unsuppressed power. To compensate, Shino forces him to master intricate swordplay instead of relying on the standard chi control. She observes that he uses reckless training to escape his broken reality and his own fractured identity. This isolation drives his social anxieties, creating a cycle where returning to normal society becomes nearly impossible. She labels their training sessions the escape, hoping he can eventually break the chains binding his potential. Deep in the woods, Nozomu searches for resources but finds only rats instead of the mushrooms he needs. Magic serves as the spiritual counterpart to chi, utilizing ancient spirit-based forces to manifest power throughout the world. Hearing a strange sound, Nozomu suspects a beast-type demon is nearby, unlike the dogs he fought previously. Driven by curiosity and a need for experience, he cautiously moves deeper into the forest to investigate. Two massive demonic bears roar through the trees, their presence signaling an immediate and deadly threat. He watches them from hiding, noting their unusual behavior and suspecting the two powerful beasts are brothers. Rank B demonic bears are lethal threats that regular soldiers cannot defeat, requiring powerful adventurers instead. A mysterious warrior with striking long dark hair lunges forward with incredible speed and precise intent. She delivers a devastating slice to a demonic beast, the force of her impact echoing loudly. The beast roars in agony as she continues her high-speed movements across the dangerous forest floor. A flurry of rapid-fire sword strikes cuts through the air, overwhelming the target with sheer mechanical speed. She sheathes her ornate weapon after the confrontation, her presence dominating the shadowy woods around her. Her dark hair flows gracefully in the wind as the immediate combat finally comes to a rest. This elite student is Iris Dina Franchild, known widely as the legendary Midnight Princess. A demonic bear growls fiercely, showing its sharp fangs as another battle begins to unfold nearby. A skilled mage prepares an intermediate wind spell, calling upon the elements to manifest a powerful blast. Her magical leaf-shaped pendant glows brilliantly, channeling vast amounts of spirit energy for the coming attack. She demonstrates magical strength that reportedly surpasses the teacher's, focusing her power with a determined shout. Swirling currents of wind gather around her catalyst, forming a dense and rapidly rotating magical vortex. She unleashes a massive wind vortex from her staff, the spiraling gale tearing through the dense foliage. The intermediate level spell crashes into its target with violent force, creating a destructive spiral of air. Nozomu watches in silent awe, identifying the powerful mage as the renowned minstrel of the Four Winds. The student Iris Dina Franchild catches her breath, her reputation at the Academy's top fully justified. He contemplates the technique and sheer power she used to knock down such a formidable demon bear. Looking on, he wonders how her raw magical abilities can be so powerful without any external boosters. Suddenly, a terrifying roar erupts from the shadows, startling the students as a new threat emerges. Nozomu sprints away as a massive demonic bear lunges forward with a deafening, predatory roar. The beast corners a startled blonde girl, its sharp claws and teeth ready to strike her down. Suddenly, Iris Dina Franchild enters the fray, her eyes radiating a cold and lethal concentration. She delivers a devastating slash that sends blood spraying as the monster howls in agonizing pain. The Midnight Princess uses her unique ability to cast powerful attacks without any vocal chanting. Her high-speed blade work creates a blur of movement as she systematically dismantles the aggressive beast. Standing amidst the debris, she remains perfectly composed while her long hair flows in the wind. Iris stares intensely through her bangs, her reputation as a top academy student clearly evident. Nearby, another feral bear roars in fury, its savage presence threatening the safety of the group. A skilled young mage prepares to defend herself, calling upon the spiritual forces of the wind. Nozomu grips his katana with both hands, wielding the blade with a newfound conviction and determination. Iris watches him in shock, noticing that his sword technique bears a striking resemblance to her own. The demonic beast roars once more, its massive form casting a shadow over the struggling young man. The blonde girl focuses her magic, aiming her staff to unleash a powerful and protective wind spell. A violent wind vortex erupts, shredding through the air and slicing into the enemy with extreme force. Nozomu identifies the powerful mage as the legendary minstrel of the Four Winds during the chaotic battle. After the combat concludes, Iris catches her breath while reflecting on the unexpected support she received. She approaches Nozomu to check for injuries, her concern contrasting with her usual stoic and distant demeanor. Her eyes search his face as she prepares to speak to the boy who helped her. Iris sincerely thanks Nozomu, stating that his timely assistance ensured that she and her friend survived. Iris identifies herself as Iris Dina Franchild, a second-year student belonging to the same class as Nozomu. Next, her companion nervously stutters her name as Thelma Lee Lime, appearing incredibly shy and flustered around Nozomu. Nozomu stares back in silent disbelief, surprised to encounter two of the Academy's most elite students here. Thelma continues to blush deeply while clutching her staff, clearly uncomfortable under the young man's focused gaze. Seeing his shock, Iris prepares to move on while Nozomu watches their figures with a mixture of confusion. Before departing, Iris apologizes for her friend's skittishness, noting that Thelma is particularly shy when around men. He politely dismisses her concerns with a gentle expression, assuring them that he doesn't mind her behavior. Iris then turns her full attention back to him, curiously inquiring about his own identity and name. Nozomu looks on intently as he realizes he is being questioned by the famous Midnight Princess of the Academy. A dark thought crosses his mind as he remembers that his poor reputation is likely known by everyone. Although he considers hiding his identity, he ultimately decides that being impolite would only make matters worse. Meanwhile, Iris stands with a neutral expression, her noble heritage and status reflecting her prominent founding family. He finally identifies himself as Nozomu Bounties, a second-year student currently assigned to the lowly 10th-ranked class. Following his confession, Iris remains quiet and contemplative, her calm demeanor offering no immediate sign of judgment. Nozomu lowers his gaze in shame, fully expecting the typical ridicule or mockery that always follows his name. He braces himself for a cold response, his heart heavy with the familiar weight of being a failure. Surprisingly, Iris merely asks about the location of his party, finding it suspicious for a student to be alone. Stunned by her neutral inquiry, he looks at the two girls with wide eyes and a bewildered expression. His breath hitches as he realizes she hasn't immediately looked down on him for his low ranking. Perspiring from the social pressure, he struggles to find the right words to explain his solitary presence. Thelma appears visibly flustered while Iris explains that all three of them belong to the same second-year class. Iris adopts a thoughtful expression as she processes the situation, while Thelma watches nervously from the background. Nozomu reacts with genuine shock to the mention of a party, admitting that he is currently without one. Both girls stare in disbelief when he confirms that he has been navigating this dangerous forest entirely alone. Standing together, Iris and Thelma are recognized as two of the most competent A-ranked students in the academy. Rankings at the school are achieved through a variety of paths, including combat, research, and specialized technical tasks. A-rank status usually designates elite professionals such as high-level rangers, royal knights, or even brilliant military tacticians. Within the entire second-year student body, only 5 unique individuals have managed to reach this prestigious A-rank level. Nozomu remains somber, knowing that no one wants to partner with him despite the extreme danger of beasts. Iris looks puzzled, unable to comprehend why any group would reject someone capable of surviving in this wilderness. She notes that his presence in the deepest part of the forest suggests he has a very specific reason. Clenching his fist with resolve, the young man quietly confesses that he ventures out here solely to train. He explains his desperate drive to improve, willing to accept even the smallest growth to avoid simply giving up. The Midnight Princess gazes at him with wide, surprised eyes, seemingly moved by his unexpected and raw honesty. A heavy silence falls over the group as they stand together among the massive trees of the dark forest. Softening her tone, Iris offers a sincere apology for her suspicious attitude and insensitive line of questioning. Nozomu accepts her apology with a humble nod, feeling regretful for his own defensive and slightly rude behavior. When he asks for the proper way to address her, she insists on dropping all formal academy titles. Reaching out with a kind gesture, the noble girl encourages him to simply call her by her first name. He respectfully agrees to her request before turning the inquiry back to them regarding their own mysterious presence. Iris explains they are here because of a request from the guild. Catching Nozomu completely by surprise, she mentions reports of a dragon, a legendary and devastating being considered one of the most powerful creatures. Legend says killing a dragon grants its immense power, though seeing even a skeleton is nearly impossible today. Despite their potential size, any dragon sighting is treated as an undeniable and highest-level demonic threat. Nozomu listens intently, noting that a half-hearted warrior stands no chance against such a formidable, legendary beast. Iris smiles warmly, admitting that even she is prohibited from engaging the creature if it truly exists. She gives a final piece of advice, pointing upward while the young swordsman watches her curiously. A soft and genuine smile crosses Nozomu's face, reflecting a brief moment of peace amidst his harsh life. Insisting she owes him a favor, Iris offers him all the valuable materials from the fallen demonic bear. She informs him they will return to the city tomorrow. While Nozomu decides to take some meat, both girls offer their final thanks, with Thelma still appearing incredibly shy and flustered behind her friend. Holding his bundle of resources, the young man bids them farewell and prepares to continue his journey. Iris and Thelma walk away together, leaving Nozomu alone in the quiet, beast-filled forest with his thoughts. As they walk, Iris turns to her friend, noticing her lingering unease and unusually quiet behavior. She questions why Thelma is acting so unusually timid. Even for someone who typically struggles with men, Thelma mentions the dark rumors about him cheating on Lisa, her face flushing with a mix of emotions. Realization dawns on Iris as she connects the boy to the scandalous stories circulating throughout the academy. She looks back with a sharp, discerning gaze, contemplating the character of the mysterious student she just met. Recalling his earnest expression, she finds it hard to believe he would ever do such a horrible thing. Watching his distant form, she concludes that the malicious rumors simply do not match the man she witnessed. Thelma admits she was terrified, her voice trembling while Iris watches her with quiet observation. Iris reassures her friend that they might meet the boy again, allowing for a future apology. Nozomu sprints through the dark forest, hurrying back. A happy smile spreads across his face as he reflects on his surprising and meaningful encounter. He returns to the training grounds, meeting Shino. The master teases him about his lateness, suggestively asking if he was distracted by the opposite sex. Flustered and sweating, the boy tries to deflect her accusations, while wondering why his master seems angry. Consequently, Shino doubles his grueling training regimen the next day to punish his perceived lack of focus. Later that night, Iris lies awake in her quarters, deeply impressed by the incredible speed of Nozomu's blade. She examines her own weapon, a blade crafted from mithril, which possesses a high affinity for magic. Mithril stands as a superior material, known throughout the land for its incredible strength and unique flexibility. Her sword, a gift from her father, was specifically designed to handle her heavy consumption of magical power. Moonlight filters into her room as she sets aside her gear, still haunted by the day's events. She grips the hilt of her powerful blade. Iris stands alone in her chamber, drawing her weapon as she prepares to practice her most lethal techniques. The blade glows with intense energy, manifesting the moonlight eclipse, her most devastating and secret magical attack. She contemplates the fundamental nature of chi and magic, both originating from the core of the soul. While magic relies on the caster's mental state, chi draws from the physical strength of the human body. These two forces typically repel one another, creating a natural imbalance that very few can truly overcome. Iris wonders if her sword can overcome this nature to eventually pierce even the toughest dragon scales. Iris gazes out the window while holding her sword, noting that Nozomu did not head toward the city. The forest at night is a suicidal territory where only highly trained scouts or those with death wishes remain. A fierce determination burns in Nozomu's eyes as he faces the harsh realities of his current living situation. He smiles gently while recalling the unexpected kindness shown by the two high-ranking girls he encountered earlier. Iris watches his departing figure with a faint smile, her curiosity piqued by the mystery surrounding the lone student. She wonders what kind of person he really is beneath the layers of rumors and his obvious physical exhaustion. Bright sunlight filters through the canopy the next day around noon, signaling the start of another grueling training day. Nozomu shields his eyes from the intense midday heat while walking along a quiet path near the academy grounds. The campus is filled with the lively chatter of students enjoying their free time in the crowded public areas. From a distance, he observes the bustling market stalls and the diverse groups of people gathered in the park. Laughter and conversation echo through the air, highlighting the stark social divide between him and his cheerful academy peers. Feeling isolated and widely despised, the boy finds the presence of so many people deeply uncomfortable and draining. He retreats into the silence of the trees, deciding to eat his solitary meal away from judging eyes today. Unwrapping a simple, modest lunch, he prepares to sustain himself after a morning of intense and painful physical training. Having pushed his body to its absolute limit under Master Shino, he barely has the energy to eat properly. Resting against a sturdy tree trunk, he finishes his meager meal while trying to stay optimistic about his future. Suddenly, a young girl with long, flowing hair walks through the forest, catching the attention of the resting boy. He notices her uniform and wonders if she is a student from Eklos, the academy's nearby auxiliary junior school. Eklos focuses on training younger students around 10 years old who show exceptional promise and high-level latent magical potential. Children of powerful officials often attend this institution to refine their gifted abilities from a remarkably early age. Nozomu observes the young girl, noting her small stature for a student of the junior auxiliary school. The girl panics and waves her arms frantically, making Nozomu wonder if she had an accident. Watching from a distance, he decides that leaving a distressed child alone in the forest is too dangerous. He approaches her with a sweating face, his expression filled with concern and hidden inner turmoil. Looking down, he hesitates for a moment before engaging in a conversation with the mysterious young girl. The girl suddenly turns around and asks him if he is all right, surprising him with her directness. She gazes up at him with large expressive eyes that reflect both innocence and a hidden strength. Nozomu experiences a sense of familiarity while she questions his solitary presence in the deep woods. She shyly explains that she was playing with her pet during her lunch break before things went wrong. Confused, he repeats the pet's name, Shadow, while looking around the immediate area for a companion. He follows her gaze upward into the high canopy of the smooth and formidable forest trees. A black cat named Shadow sits high on a branch, playfully clutching a valuable, sparkling metal bracelet. The girl confirms the jewelry belongs to her and explains how the mischievous feline stole it away. She pleads for the cat to come down while Nozomu calculates the difficulty of the steep climb. He touches the tree's surface, noting that the exceptionally smooth wood makes ascending significantly more difficult. Determined to help, he rolls up his sleeves and prepares himself for the challenging, vertical task ahead. High above, the ears of the black cat twitch as it senses the boy's focused approach. Shadow stares back with large, unblinking eyes, seemingly unfazed by the presence of the climbing student. Balancing skillfully on a high branch, Nozomu confidently declares that climbing is one of his specialties. He reaches out a steady hand toward the feline, gently asking for the return of the girl's treasure. Shadow the black cat hisses menacingly at Nozomu, refusing to return the stolen bracelet without a fierce struggle. In a sudden blur, the feline leaps onto the boy's head and begins scratching him in frantic movement. Meanwhile, Nozomu shouts in pain while desperately trying to pull the aggressive animal off his face and hair. Eventually, he manages to grab the cat by the scruff, demanding it stop its relentless and painful assault. However, the stubborn pet continues swiping its sharp claws near the young student's startled and wide eyes. This struggle causes both of them to tumble backward through the air with a loud and frantic yell. Together, they land hard on a thick branch, with the cat still maintaining a tight grip on jewelry. A metallic jingle rings out from its collar as the black cat stands proud among the forest leaves. The cat mocks him with a humph, clearly unimpressed by the boy's clumsy attempts to secure the bracelet. Now exhausted, Nozomu notices the young girl holding out a lunch meal as a sign of her gratitude. Attempting to catch the cat once more, he lunges forward, but the feline evades with a graceful leap. Consequently, the boy misses his target and finds himself falling awkwardly off the narrow and smooth wooden branch. Shadow watches from above as the boy plummets toward the distant forest floor with a startled, shocked expression. As he falls, the young girl watches the scene unfold in complete and utter shock from the ground. After crashing into the tall grass below, he groans in pain while the girl checks on his condition. Then the cat gracefully descends to his side, having finally placed the bracelet around its own furry neck. Recovering slightly, Nozomu asks if the precious bracelet is okay, while ignoring his own mounting and physical pain. Feeling relieved, the girl hugs her mischievous pet and offers her most sincere thanks to the helpful boy. Looking up, he gazes back with a kind smile, content that his difficult efforts brought someone else happiness. Finally, she realized her lack of manners while Nozomu humbly insists that his help was no big deal. The young girl introduces herself as Somiliana, though her friends simply call her Somia. Nozomu offers his own name in return, allowing the excited child to address him informally. She cheers with delight, expressing deep gratitude for his heroic and unexpected rescue of her pet. Stunned by her sincerity, Nozomu reflects on how long it has been since someone truly thanked him. Somia happily cuddles her mischievous cat, Shadow, her face radiating pure joy and innocent relief. Looking on with a soft smile, he finds a rare moment of peace in her genuine kindness. Suddenly, the loud academy bells chime through the air, signaling the end of the lunch break. Somia panics at the sound, realizing she must hurry back to avoid being late for class. With a polite bow, she thanks Nozomu one last time before sprinting away with her cat. He watches her disappear under the midday sun, realizing he completely missed eating his own lunch. Back in the academy, the instructor begins a lecture on the history and application of ritual magic. Sitting isolated against the cold stone wall, Nozomu listens as the teacher dismisses those without talent. Mr. Var presents a small magical altar, instructing the class to create their own focused structures. He explains that verbal incantations are necessary to funnel raw magical power directly into the center. The students focus on their desired spells. Whether manifesting a shining light or a blast of water, precision is paramount, as the accuracy of the magic circle depends entirely on the caster's technique. A talented student successfully manifests a swirling vortex of energy, demonstrating her impressive control over the elements. Nozomu stares down at his own empty hands, feeling the crushing weight of his suppressed magical abilities. Watching his peers work, he admits he cannot even imagine the sensation of successfully channeling magic. Meanwhile, the arrogant Mars Dickens stands surrounded by powerful energy, proficient in both chi and magic. Nozomu reflects on the rarity of students like Mars who are exceptional in both chi and magic. Classmates discuss Mars's aggressive past while Nozomu sits isolated in the background, nursing his own failures. Due to his suppressed abilities, the boy has become accustomed to sitting out of every magical lecture. He attends class merely to maintain appearances, ensuring his academic record doesn't suffer any further negative marks. Looking through the window, he watches groups of happy students while contemplating his own lonely existence. The Academy's meritocratic system grants superior benefits and preferential treatment to those with the most talented abilities. High-ranking students enjoy better opportunities and supplies provided by the Adventurers Guild for their various quests. Nozomu identifies Iris as one of the elite students, acknowledging her high status and formidable combat skills. His gaze then falls upon Lisa, the girl he once loved who has reached the Academy's top. He acknowledges the massive gap between the 10th ranked class and the elite areas where they currently train. Seeing her again brings back painful memories, making him regret running into the one he tried to avoid. A year has passed since they promised each other a future, a bond now shattered by his failure. Bitter tears of frustration and regret well up in his eyes as he faces his harsh reality. Meanwhile, Iris focuses her intent and grips her sword, ready to showcase her mastery of magical combat. She springs into action, her feet kicking up dust as she launches herself forward with sudden explosive energy. The high-ranked student moves with such incredible speed that she becomes a blur to the human eye. Nozomu watches in utter amazement, unable to track her movements as she dominates the practice field with ease. Thelma lunges forward to challenge her, desperately trying to keep up with the Midnight Princess's superior agility. Iris effortlessly counterattacks by manifesting rapid-fire phantom bullets, keeping her opponent under constant and heavy pressure. Sparks fly as their weapons clash repeatedly, the sound of clashing steel echoing through the training grounds. Iris maintains her composure while Nozomu watches in awe, amazed by her calm demeanor amidst the chaos. Lisa grits her teeth and swings her blade with incredible force, her eyes fixed solely on her opponent. Metallic shrieks and cracks fill the arena as the two elites engage in a high-speed, lethal exchange. Moving with supernatural grace, Iris skillfully evades the barrage of precise and deadly strikes coming her way. Sparks fly with every violent collision as Lisa pushes forward, determined to break through her rival's defense. Multiple blade paths surround Iris, proving that Lisa has firmly seized control of this intense mock battle. Nozomu observes from the sidelines, noting the absolute confidence and power radiating from Lisa's expert swordsmanship. A fierce battle cry erupts as the pressure mounts, making the young spectator doubt if Iris can survive. A massive impact sends a shockwave through the ground, forcing Iris to brace against the monstrous momentum. Suddenly, Iris begins manifesting dark magical orbs without a single chant, shocking everyone with her high-level ability. She seamlessly blends her magical prowess with masterclass swordplay, creating a terrifyingly versatile and unique combat style. The arena becomes a blur of silver light and dark energy as the two warriors trade relentless blows. Utilizing enchanted chains and blinding black fog, Iris employs every trick to distract and corner her foe. Sweating from the sheer intensity, Nozomu realizes he is witnessing the true power of the Academy's elite. Lisa refuses to yield. Moving so fast, she leaves after images while her strikes create violent, localized gales. The ruthlessness of the exchange leaves the onlookers breathless as Iris suddenly maneuvers to create some distance. Steel meets steel once more in a deafening clash that resonates through the very foundations of the school. Gathering her internal energy, Lisa lets out a primal roar that manifests as a visible, burning aura. Her weapon is engulfed in a turbulent vortex of power, ready to deliver a final, crushing blow. A massive explosion of magic shatters the silence, signaling the reach of this legendary confrontation's climax. A cataclysmic burst of white light consumes the arena, marking the collision of two insurmountable magical forces. Lisa pours her entire spirit into a final desperate swing, her battle cry echoing through the training hall. This resulting shockwave rivals the most advanced wind magic, surprising even the seasoned spectators with its magnitude. Iris retaliates with equal ferocity, her own scream piercing the air as the ground beneath them shatters apart. Stunned by the display of top-tier combat, Nozomu can only watch as the thick dust begins to settle. A jagged, smoking trench carves a path through the earth, a testament to the girl's terrifying destructive potential. Wiping away cold sweat, Nozomu grapples with the realization that the gap between them remains incredibly vast. He stares in silence, his mind racing to understand how a fellow student could possess such overwhelming power. The duel concludes with both warriors gasping for breath, acknowledging the calculated preparations made throughout the fight. Iris accepts the hard-earned praise with a faint, knowing smile, finding a rare moment of mutual warrior respect. Silence returns to the arena as Iris watches Lisa Hounds depart, the weight of their complicated history lingering. Rumors of the scandalous love triangle between Lisa, Ken Notice, and Nozomu continue to haunt the Academy's hallways. Ken maintains his virtuous facade while advising against judging others based on mere hearsay or social standing. Gripping her hilt, Iris laments her own slow casting time and the inefficiency of her ultimate magical technique. She watches Nozomu from afar, haunted by how he executed his own skills in a single, impossible second. Unaware of her gaze, the young swordsman keeps his face stoic and his emotions buried deep within. Thelma attempts to offer a friendly greeting with a shy wave, her face flushing with nervous and hopeful energy. Without a second glance, Nozomu continues walking down the corridor, his mind focused entirely on his own training. Struck by his cold indifference, the girl freezes in place with a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Left standing alone in the massive training facility, she wonders if she was truly and completely ignored. Somia hands something to a thankful Iris while their friends converse in the busy training hall. Iris quickly gulps down the liquid, perhaps seeking a brief moment of respite from her intense exhaustion. Throughout the day, the top students continue their relentless sparring as onlookers study every high-speed movement. Iris observes the various techniques from the sidelines, hoping to incorporate their strengths into her own style. Her gaze remains sharp and focused, meticulously analyzing the flow of energy during the chaotic practice sessions. From across the room, she catches sight of Ken and Lisa standing together in quiet conversation. The golden couple eventually turns to leave, their proximity a constant reminder of the Academy's social dynamics. Noticing her friend's sudden lapse in focus, Thelma voices her concern and asks if something is wrong. Iris quickly dismisses the inquiry with a vague excuse, turning her back to hide her growing conflict. Despite her deflection, her mind continues to wander back to the mysteries of those who inhabit the Academy. Magical displays erupt nearby as other students push their limits, demonstrating the vast power within the school. Steel continues to ring out against steel, echoing the competitive spirit that drives every aspiring warrior here. Her attention shifts toward Nozomu's retreating figure, his solitary presence standing in stark contrast to the crowd. She finds herself drawn to his mysterious nature, wondering about the secrets he hides beneath his exterior. Turning toward her companion, Iris gathers her courage to initiate a conversation that has been weighing heavily. She finally asks about the true nature of Nozomu's restricted ability, her curiosity reaching its breaking point. Thelma reacts with genuine surprise, her wide eyes reflecting the weight of such a controversial and personal question. Meanwhile, Nozomu exits the Academy grounds alone, his heavy footsteps marking another day of isolation and struggle. Dark thoughts of betrayal and weakness plague his mind, forcing him to question his purpose in this world. Bound by invisible chains and unable to return home, he stands alone in the forest, facing his future. Nozomu reflects on the painful reality that has forced his heart to seal itself from within. He laments his inability to improve, despite grueling training and the cold disgust he receives from Lisa. Desperate to find a way out, Nozomu decides he needs his master's help to train even harder. Suddenly, rustling in the bushes interrupts his internal monologue, catching him completely off guard as he yells out. Somia joyfully catches her black cat, Shadow, as the mischievous pet lets out a surprised and loud meow. Nozomu greets Somia while she holds her pet, their sudden reunion momentarily distracting him from his dark thoughts. Shadow nibbles on her hand while Somia explains how the cat escaped during her afternoon practical training class. Nozomu looks on with a confused expression as Somia continues to speak with an earnest and lively energy. Blushing slightly, Somia asks Nozomu if she can see him again tomorrow to repay his kindness. He is taken aback by her request, questioning what she means by wanting to see him again. Somia gazes at him with hopeful, sparkling eyes, her sincere desire to talk more becoming very apparent. Nozomu is stunned, realizing this is the first time in ages someone has offered kindness without bullying intent. He hesitates, worrying that being seen with him might cause her to receive the same cruel treatment. Seeing her expectant face, he struggles to formulate an answer while battling his own deep-seated social anxieties. Somia joyfully cheers when he suggests meeting during lunch instead of after school, Happy with the compromise, with a final energetic goodbye, the young girl promises to see him tomorrow before turning to run off. Nozomu reaches out as she sprints away into the forest. Left standing alone once again in silence, he offers a tired smile, overwhelmed by the girl's tremendous amount of energy and his inability to speak. Elsewhere under the vast starry night, a young girl prays while her hands begin to glow with magic. Radiant energy swirls around her palms as she continues her mysterious ritual beneath the watchful and full moon. Young Somia groans in frustration while struggling with her lessons, her young heart filled with deep-seated insecurities. A small spark ignites between her palms, startling her as she realizes her magical potential is finally awakening. Late into the night, she reads by flickering candlelight, wondering why she cannot match her sister's natural brilliance. Iris appears behind her with a gentle gaze. Questioning why her little sister is being so hard on herself, Somia looks up with sparkling eyes and joyfully greets her big sister, finding comfort in her protective presence. Standing with poise and elegance, Iris looks down from the balcony while embodying the perfect role model for Somia. The world's magic is defined by 6 elements, with earth, fire, wind, and water being the most common. Iris asks if any particular spell is causing trouble, explaining that complex magic requires a strong elemental affinity. Demonstrating her mastery, Iris manifests a bright light spell called Torch, leaving her sister completely awestruck and inspired. She explains the delicate balance of maintaining magical energy, revealing that her true specialty actually lies in darkness. Somia cheers with unbridled enthusiasm, praising her sister's incredible talent and wishing she could reach such heights. Encouraged by the demonstration, the young girl focuses intensely as she attempts to manifest her own magical energy. They spend a quiet evening together studying ancient tomes, sharing a bond that transcends mere teacher and student. Under the watchful moon, the 2 sisters find peace in each other's company amidst their prestigious family life. A warm, nostalgic smile crosses Somia's face as she remembers the kindness that shaped her childhood years. Back in the present, Iris notices her friend's unusually bright mood and asks if something good recently happened. Excitedly, Somia confirms that she has made a wonderful new friend, piquing Iris's curiosity about this mysterious person. She recalls her meeting with Nozomu in the park, a man whose presence is as mysterious as it is helpful. Somia describes him as a kind soul who carries an immense sadness that seems to constantly bother him. Despite his tendency to avoid others, his willingness to help someone in trouble reveals his true, compassionate nature. Somia turns the conversation to Iris, asking her big sister how things are going in her own life. Iris admits she has encountered several interesting people recently, with one individual standing out among the academy crowd. She vividly recalls Nozomu's broken expression during their encounter, questioning his presence and the heavy emotions he carried. Acknowledging her unusual interest, Iris confesses she is drawn to someone she barely knows or has spoken with before. She reflects on his superhuman speed, watching him effortlessly dismantle monsters with precision that shames even master swordsmen. Under the shimmering night sky, Iris suggests ending their long conversation so they can both finally get some sleep. Somia protests loudly, wanting to spend more time discussing the mysterious boy who rescued her precious pet earlier today. Teasingly, Iris reminds her sister that rest is essential for growing as big and strong as her elder sibling. Placing a gentle hand on Somia's head, she proposes they both investigate their new friend before sharing more later. Memories of their shared past flicker by as Somia reads quietly, while Iris watches over her from the balcony. Young Iris ascends the grand staircase alone, the weight of her family's future already resting heavily upon her shoulders. Looking back at her small sister, she feels a profound sense of duty and love for the sibling left behind. Tragedy struck when Somia was born prematurely, resulting in the sudden and heartbreaking death of their beloved ailing mother. At only 6 years old, Iris vowed to protect her sister from harm and become the prestigious family's head. She dedicated her life to mastering combat and magic, pushing through every obstacle to meet the high expectations of others. Gazing at the endless stars, the Midnight Princess wonders why such a hardworking individual is treated like an outcast. Contrast forms between the rumors of a cruel scumbag and the reality of a man desperately supporting his love. Despite the cold treatment from everyone around him, Nozomu remains isolated while the distance between him and Lisa grows. Iris closes her eyes, concluding that the circumstantial evidence points toward a significant and painful rift between the friends. She recognizes the immense effort etched into his body, a silent testament to a man determined to change his fate. Iris wonders what grueling training Nozomu endured, while Somia stubbornly insists she is no longer just a child. Conversations shift to the academy, as Nozomu confirms he is currently a second-year student like Somia's older sister. Curiously, Somia asks about academy life, leaving Nozomu struggling to provide a positive or even certain answer. He looks down in shame, quietly confessing his status as the lowest-ranked failure within the prestigious meritocratic institution. With a heartwarming smile, Somia claims they are alike because she also struggles to match her sister's brilliance. Staring into her shining eyes, Nozomu recognizes an innocent immaturity that fuels her relentless and admirable effort. Somia joyfully pets Shadow, helping Nozomu reach a moment of self-acceptance through her pure and radiant optimism. The young man watches her with a softened expression, deeply moved by her unwavering spirit and genuine kindness. While Shadow playfully scratches at the precious bracelet, Somia prepares to share the history of her family heirloom. She explains that the artifact serves as a vital bond for her family, promising eventual reunion despite long separations. Originally locked away, the bracelet became a cherished birthday gift from her sister to ensure they remain forever connected. Nozomu muses on the beauty of such family ties while inquiring about the date of Somia's upcoming birthday celebration. Somia reveals her father is away on business, but her sister still plans to host a grand party soon. Radiant with excitement, the young girl cheers at the prospect of the celebration despite her father's unfortunate absence. Nozomu remains quiet, finding a rare moment of peace while observing the child's infectious and unburdened happiness. The peaceful atmosphere shifts instantly as a familiar and powerful figure approaches them from across the forest clearing. Somia identifies the newcomer as her sister, informing Nozomu that they will be sharing their midday meal together. Shock washes over both Iris and Nozomu as they suddenly realize their unexpected and mutual connection to Somia. Iris steps forward with a look of pure astonishment, never imagining Nozomu was the friend Somia had praised. Frozen in disbelief, Nozomu can only stare, while Somia innocently asks if her big sister already knows him. Nozomu reels from the revelation that Iris is Somia's sister, his mind racing to process the unexpected connection. Somia confirms her noble last name as Franchot, her innocent eyes contrasting with the weight of her heritage. A look of pure, unadulterated shock crosses the young swordsman's face as the pieces finally fall into place. He notices their identical black hair and remembers the bracelet, realizing Somia is no ordinary commoner student. Cursing his own density, Nozomu laments not making the obvious connection between the two powerful and elegant sisters. While Iris hands Somia her lunch, Nozomu collapses into a heap of despair over his own perceived foolishness. The Midnight Princess suddenly turns her attention toward the boy, inviting him to join them for their meal. Nozomu marvels at her composure and divine beauty. Seeing her as a goddess who helps those in need, he feels like a worthless loser compared to the worshipped elite, wondering why she would ever invite him. Fears of academy rumors plague his mind, knowing news of their meeting would spread like wildfire through campus. Attempting to maintain his distance, Nozomu tries to politely decline the invitation, while Somia remains joyfully persistent. The young girl playfully grabs his arm to prevent his escape, leaving the overwhelmed boy completely at her mercy. Iris observes his discomfort, correctly guessing that he prefers the quiet forest over the crowded and judging campus. Blushing under her focused gaze, Nozomu admits that being around so many people is difficult for him now. Deciding on a compromise, Iris suggests they eat right there in the peaceful solitude of the forest clearing. As they share sandwiches, Iris mentions that old social standings and homelands carry much less weight in Al-Khazam. Nozomu inquires about Thelma, learning that their friend was summoned to Professor Jihad's office for an urgent matter. Historical records recount the Great Invasion 20 years ago, a disaster that forced all nations to unite together. Many countries fell during the demonic onslaught, leaving the continent in a state of ruin and civil disruption. To prepare for the next invasion, they established Solminatai Academy and Al-Khazam as a central research hub. Iris reassures Nozomu about Thelma's absence as they enjoy their peaceful lunch together in the quiet clearing. Meanwhile, she shares her deep affection for dogs despite her sister's very different preference for felines, which causes Nozomu to react with a look of mild confusion and nervousness at the lighthearted topic. As he mentions noticing something unexpected during their talk, while Iris tilts her head curiously, showing a radiant smile, Iris admits her sister loves dogs, but she personally finds cats much cuter. Before taking a brief break from the conversation to enjoy her lunch with typical noble grace, the two sisters then engage in a spirited debate about which animal is truly superior. Whereas Iris passionately argues for the unmatched cuteness of puppies that follow their owners around, Somia counters by showing off Shadow, claiming that a cat's purr is the most adorable sound possible. Feeling slightly overwhelmed by their energy, Nozomu watches them bicker over pet loyalty and quirky behaviors. Eventually, Iris apologizes for getting carried away and schedules the next session of their pet council. Then Somia innocently inquires about the specific circumstances behind her sister and Nozomu's first meeting. While Nozomu attempts to be vague, Iris reveals his incredible feat of slaying a demonic bear instantly, resulting in Somia's face lighting up with pure amazement at the news of his hidden strength. Though he humbly denies the praise, Iris confirms he saved Thelma from a lethal monster attack. Finding the situation perplexing, Iris questions how such a master swordsman remains in the lowest class. Subsequently, Nozomu explains that his suppressed magic only allows for a single, dangerously powerful strike. This leads Iris to ask why he hasn't joined a party to better supplement his limited resources. Looking down somberly, he admits the harsh reality that no one at the academy wants him. Finally, she stares intently into his eyes, recognizing the heavy burden his suppressed abilities have caused. Iris reassures Nozomu about Thelma while they continue their lunch in the forest clearing. A whimsical thought of a cute dog appears, hinting at the lighthearted turn in their conversation. Nozomu listens intently, his expression reflecting a mix of surprise and lingering social anxiety. Noticing his hesitation, Iris asks what is wrong as he mentions finding something unexpected. Somia declares her sister's love for dogs while maintaining that cats are far superior in cuteness. Iris munches on her meal, momentarily stepping away from her role as the high-ranking midnight princess. She firmly argues that puppies are unmatched on Earth, sparking a playful debate with her younger sister. Giggling, Iris describes how adorable it is when a dog wags its tail and follows you. Somia counters by presenting Shadow, claiming his purring is the cutest sound she has ever heard. Nozomu sighs as the sisters engage in their hundreds of times repeated cat versus dog council debate. Iris eventually apologizes for getting carried away, promising to continue their animal discussion another day. Curiously, Somia asks the pair how they originally met, shifting the mood back to their history. Iris reveals Nozomu's incredible feat of slicing through a demonic bear in under a single second. Somia gazes at him with wide, shining eyes, completely awestruck by the news of his hidden power. Though he tries to deny the praise, Iris confirms he saved Thelma from certain monster-inflicted doom. Finding it strange, Iris questions his low ranking, while Nozomu admits to his severely suppressed magical abilities. He explains that his limited energy only allows for one lethal attack, risking everything on a single strike. Iris asks why he hasn't joined a party to compensate for his individual physical and magical limitations. Nozomu confesses that no one wants to group with an outcast, leaving Iris struggling to understand his isolation. She realizes his distrust stems from a broken heart and decides she won't just believe the rumors. Iris reflects on her words, regretting that she might have been too insensitive toward Nozomu's difficult situation. Somia gently suggests that her big sister should offer an apology for the misunderstanding they just had. Iris agrees to apologize later while Nozomu retreats into the woods, using training to escape his freezing heart. He vividly remembers how most of his friends abandoned him instantly when the malicious rumors first started. The weight of his peers' constant mockery and judgment follows him like a shadow through the campus. He tries to maintain a stoic facade, convincing himself that their cruel rejection is no longer a problem. Despite his efforts to stay calm, the trauma of the past continues to haunt his very being. Lisa sits alone in the grass, her posture suggesting a lingering sadness regarding her former relationship. Nearby, Ken and Camilla look on with shock, their expressions reflecting the tension of an old conflict. From behind, Nozomu watches them, his solitary figure emphasizing the vast distance between their social circles. Camilla Voituknos glares with intense hostility, her face twisted in a look of pure, unbridled anger. Ken eventually breaks the silence, coldly noting that it has been quite some time since they last spoke. Watching Ken and Camilla together reminds Nozomu of the life he lost, pushing him further into isolation. A sharp pang of regret crosses his face as he struggles to find the right words to say. Camilla immediately shuts him down, demanding that he never speak to her as if they were still close. She expresses shock that he is even still attending the academy after everything that allegedly happened between them. It is revealed that Camilla was the quickest to reject him, despite their previous friendship during their first year. With a look of pure disgust, she demands to know exactly what he wants from her now. Overwhelmed by the rejection, Nozomu feels himself falling deeper into a dark, cold abyss of total despair. He eventually stops trying to clear his name, choosing instead to reject the hope of ever making things right. Close-up of Nozomu's mouth, he realizes his attempt to explain only worsened his fragile mental state. Struggling with a hurricane of emotions, Nozomu desperately wants to speak, but his mind remains completely shaken. Consequently, Camilla glares with icy hatred, demanding he leave her sight immediately and never attempt to return. Her venomous words strike deep, leaving Nozomu frozen in place with a look of pure, agonizing shock. Meanwhile, he stands paralyzed as the weight of her rejection crushes what little remained of his fragile resolve. Dismissing him entirely, Camilla leads the group away to find a place far from his presence. Nozomu watches the back of his former friend as she disappears, the silence of the forest feeling heavier. Abandoned once more, he stares into the emptiness, a hollow shell of the man he once was. Suddenly, a violent impact jars his senses as Camilla lashes out in a fit of uncontrollable rage. She pins him down, screaming at him to realize how much pain his supposed actions cause Lisa. Her face contorts with disgust while she labels him a traitorous idiot who ruined everything they had. After leaving him broken in the dirt, the group walks away into the depths of the ancient forest. Ken looks back with a complicated expression, his silent gaze adding to the heavy atmosphere of betrayal. Then the clearing falls silent as the figures retreat, leaving the young swordsman alone with his dark thoughts. Nozomu remains slumped on the ground, his spirit battered by the relentless cruelty of his former companions. Bowing his head in shame, he sinks further into the abyss of his own crushing and lonely despair. Suddenly, a primal rage erupts within him, his teeth bared in a silent, agonizing scream against fate. Immediately, he sprints through the dense underbrush, his movements a desperate blur as he attempts to outrun his pain. Striking out at the surrounding trees, he channels his boiling frustration into a series of frantic, physical blows. Watching from the shadows, Shino notes that his once suicidal drive has finally begun to transform into resolve. Iris feels deep regret, realizing her blunt questioning might have worsened the boy's already fragile mental state. Somia suggests that a sincere apology would be the best course of action during their next encounter. Agreeing to the plan, Iris prepares for the future while Nozomu continues his habitual escape through training. He recalls how quickly his peers turned into a judgmental mob when the rumors of betrayal first circulated. Amidst the chatter of exam preparations, Nozomu remains an isolated shadow, his body trembling from the social cold. Trying to stay composed, the boy tells himself that the Academy's harsh treatment is no longer a problem. His gaze reveals a desperate attempt to ignore the pain and stay focused on his solitary path forward. Elsewhere, Iris sits alone in the quiet fields, her mind racing with questions about Nozomu's hidden strengths. Ken and Camilla appear suddenly, their startled expressions reflecting the arrival of an unexpected and powerful force. A blinding burst of light draws Nozomu deeper into the forest, leading him toward a mysterious, unknown destination. Surveying the strange terrain, he realizes he has been transported to a landscape that feels completely alien. Suddenly, a legendary dragon manifests, its ancient presence representing a power that should only exist in myth. The massive beast flaps its gargantuan wings, creating a powerful draft that shakes the very ground beneath him. Lethal claws reach out through the smoke, signaling the start of a struggle against a truly monstrous entity. Nozomu instantly launches himself into a sprint, desperately searching for a way to survive this impossible encounter. Taking cover behind the jagged rocks, he narrowly avoids the initial shockwave of the dragon's overwhelming power. The legendary creature crashes into the earth with a deafening impact, shattering the surrounding terrain into pieces. Rolling through the dirt, he skids away from the impact zone while realizing the necessity of a retreat. Nozomu dives forward with every ounce of his remaining strength, his body battered by the intense pressure. As a last resort, he uses specialized orbs to create a massive explosion, hoping to blind the monster. The legendary dragon gazes into the thick, swirling clouds, its true aim remaining a complete and utter mystery. As he rushes forward through the heavy dust, Nozomu's focus sharpens while he prepares for his next move. Behind him, he pursues a shimmering light that led him to this strange, alien landscape in the first place. Suddenly, the monstrous beast releases a bone-chilling roar, unleashing a wave of pure and destructive energy. Consequently, the force of the sonic blast sends Nozomu flying through the air like a mere rag doll. Despite the impact, he skids across the ground while the dragon continues to devastate everything with its voice. In the very next moment, the massive predator prepares to follow up with an even more lethal strike. Following the scream, explosive force shatters the terrain, sending massive boulders hurtling through the chaotic, smoke-filled air. Moments later, Nozomu's eyes widen in terror as a gargantuan sphere of concentrated energy descends rapidly toward him. Silence then consumes the battlefield, with every sound abruptly vanishing amidst the absolute and terrifying destruction. Still alive on the scarred earth, the young warrior struggles to regain his senses after the massive impact. Meanwhile, the landscape is transformed into a gargantuan crater that could easily swallow the entire Solmanati Academy. Battered and bruised, Nozomu forces his exhausted body to move, while the monster looms menacingly above him. High above, the gargantuan wings of the ancient beast flap once more, kicking up another turbulent storm. Desperately, he quickly downs a restorative vial to provide his failing body with a necessary burst of strength. Refusing to yield, a look of fierce determination returns to his face as he prepares for a counterattack. Above him, the dragon begins to manifest spiritual magic, a force far superior to standard human sorcery techniques. Furthermore, brilliant light particles surround the creature, demonstrating a type of magic completely unique to the spirits. With no other choice, Nozomu drops his broken artifact, deciding to rely solely on his own master technique. Finally, he executes a lightning-fast sword swing, knowing this activation is absolutely lethal without any external processing. The dragon activates its spirit magic, which manifests as overwhelming and blindingly fast beams of light. Consequently, Nozomu finds himself trapped under a barrage of magical rays moving faster than any human spell. He desperately swings his katana to parry the high-speed strikes, barely keeping the lethal energy at bay. Moving with frantic speed, the young warrior weaves through the chaotic and dense web of light streaks. While gritting his teeth, the intense physical and mental strain begins to take a visible toll. Meanwhile, the barren wasteland is systematically dismantled by the relentless rain of concentrated spiritual energy. The gargantuan monster looms over its fallen prey, while Nozomu lies battered on the scarred earth. Despite his injuries, he forces himself to stand, clutching his sword as he refuses to yield. With blood staining his face, he glares upward at the overwhelming power threatening his existence. Following a heavy thud, he collapses in despair next to the broken remnants of his artifact. A massive dragon claw descends from above, signaling the imminent conclusion of this one-sided struggle. The entire landscape transforms into a gargantuan crater capable of swallowing the Solmanati Academy campus. Soon, Nozomu is sent hurtling through the air by the sheer force of the dragon's roar. Visions of his former life and the pain of betrayal flash through his failing mind. He recalls the faces of his master and the teachers who showed him genuine kindness. Memories of the noble sisters provide a final spark of warmth before darkness consumes him. Battered and broken, he finally reaches his limit as the shadow of the Dragon King falls. Suddenly, Master Shino arrives in a blur, scolding her pupil while rescuing him from certain death. Standing tall, the legendary Dragon King displays its terrifying five-colored wings and jet-black body. Shino identifies the beast as Tiamat, an ancient cannibalistic Dragon King sealed 5 millennia ago. Tiamat, a legendary dragon sealed 5 millennia ago for its cannibalistic heresy, looms over the desolate battlefield. Shino stands protectively before Nozomu, lamenting his unfortunate encounter with such a terrifying and godly creature. Noticing his severe internal injuries, the master watches her pupil cough blood with a focused, worried glare. Shino sternly orders Nozomu to listen and escape while she takes on the burden of distracting the monster. Despite his protests, the master charges forward into the dragon's range to initiate her desperate diversionary strike. Pushing him away with a firm hand, Shino commands the boy to run and never look back. Nozomu lets out a frustrated cry as he is forced to leave his master behind in the smoke. Moving with supernatural speed, Shino launches herself into the air to confront the gargantuan and ancient beast. The master executes her legendary Phantom Blade technique, focusing all her lethal intent into one single, powerful slash. A massive impact resounds against the dragon's neck, sending sparks flying across the creature's impenetrable and dark scales. Gritting her teeth, Shino realizes the dragon's hide is far tougher than any material she has ever cut. Tiamat begins to glow with an ominous light, preparing to unleash a massive barrage of destructive spiritual magic. Facing hundreds of lethal light rays, the master stands her ground against the overwhelming and radiant magical storm. With one masterfully timed blow, she slices through multiple rays of light while destroying several others with chi. The Dragon King releases a deafening roar, summoning an even larger wave of 20 light rays to strike. Grunting under the immense pressure, Shino forces her body to move faster to parry the never-ending magical assault. The intensity of the battle continues to escalate as the master struggles to find any opening against Tiamat. Endless waves of light rays bombard the clearing, turning the landscape into a chaotic and blinding field of energy. Depleted of chi, Shino resorts to using her sword sheath to fend off the dragon's increasingly powerful attacks. As her muscles ache from the strain, she admits her past self would have crumbled under this godly pressure. Shino's senses vanish from extreme exhaustion, leaving her numb and calling herself a total failure. Her vision begins to fade into darkness as she realizes her life is slowly slipping away. Thinking of death, the master hopes to finally escape the burden of her difficult disciple. Reflecting on their time together, she admits to enjoying her student's company more than expected. Nozomu screams for his master while she finds peace in the thought of saving him. An intense gaze captures the final moment of clarity before the terminal chaos resumes once more. Shino grips her sword tightly, preparing to face the monster one last time for Nozomu. She screams desperately, ordering her student to run away before he is caught in crossfire. The ancient Dragon King watches its prey with a cold, unyielding glare through the thick smoke. Battered and broken, Nozomu collapses on the ground amidst the wreckage of his simple life. A devastating barrage of light rays rains down, systematically erasing everything in its deadly path. Shino unleashes the Light Destroyer, a chi ability designed to lift and destroy any surrounding enemies. This special technique represents the pinnacle of her power, boasting incredible range and destructive potential. Disaster strikes as her chi suddenly depletes, causing her ultimate defense to vanish entirely and instantly. Horror fills the master's eyes as she witnesses the inevitable collapse of her remaining protective power. Nozomu can only watch in helpless terror as the blinding light consumes the battlefield around him. Violent thuds echo through the crater while the dragon's magic tears the very air apart. Impact sends the young warrior flying, his body tumbling through the sky in a trail of smoke. Choking on blood, he vomits as his internal organs suffer from the continuous and heavy trauma. Nozomu crashes hard, his body temperature plummeting as he falls into a state of deep shock. Feelings once pushed aside flood back into Nozomu's heart as he recalls meeting Iris and encountering Lisa again. He gasps for air, his lungs burning from the exertion of a frantic flight through the dark woods. Pausing beside a massive tree, he realizes the landscape has shifted into an eerie and completely unfamiliar territory. His compass spins uncontrollably, its frantic clicking suggesting he is being drawn even deeper into the forest's heart. Sweating under intense pressure, Nozomu notes the high density of demonic beasts while his equipment fails him. He seeks a temporary hiding spot within the foliage, hoping to remain undetected while he assesses the threats. A sudden realization catches him off guard as he decides to wait for the thick fog to clear. Standing in heavy silence, the lone warrior gazes at the desolate horizon, his mind weighted by uncertainty. Terror grips his heart while he wipes his brow, his gaze reflecting the mounting dread of the situation. A blinding eruption of light in the distance forces him to shield his eyes while questioning the source. He steps into a vast, scarred wasteland that looks nothing like the familiar academy grounds he once knew. A legendary dragon manifests before him, its colossal form a terrifying relic that belongs only in ancient myths. The gargantuan beast flaps its massive wings, creating a powerful gale that threatens to sweep him away instantly. Lethal talons reach through the swirling dust, signaling the start of a brutal struggle against a godly predator. Nozomu immediately breaks into a desperate sprint, his survival instinct screaming at him to escape the approaching doom. He dives for cover as massive boulders shatter into dust under the weight of the dragon's overwhelming might. A deafening crash resounds through the crater when the ancient monster lands, sending tremors through the earth. Rolling across the jagged terrain, he frantically tries to maintain his distance while his body sustains multiple injuries. Gasping on the dirt, the young swordsman realizes he is trapped within the dragon's lethal range. Desperately, he flicks multiple explosive orbs toward the beast to create a diversion, a final tactic for survival. Tiamat opens its massive jaws, the extreme acceleration of the battle pushing both combatants to their absolute limits. The legendary beast stands triumphant over the fallen boy, its presence radiating an aura of ancient and divine malice. In a brief moment of stillness, the dragon's giant eye reflects the tiny, insignificant human struggling for survival. Defiance ignites within Nozomu's gaze as he prepares to launch one last desperate and high-speed counterattack. Exploiting a split second of confusion, the young warrior vanishes from the predator's sight amidst a radiant storm, drawing his blade with a sharp metallic click. He focuses every ounce of his spirit into a single strike. A compressed strand of chi, thinner than hair, slices through the air with terrifying precision and lethal intent. The attack strikes the dragon's cornea, but fails to pierce through the creature's nearly indestructible natural defenses. Tiamat releases a primal roar, revealing a physical vulnerability shared by all living beings despite its spiritual origin. The earth shatters with a deafening smash as the dragon lurches forward, retaliating with its massive and crushing weight. An immense explosion tears through the battlefield, sending debris flying into the sky while a roar echoes through dust. Tiamat stomps the earth with enough force to trigger a massive earthquake, shaking the foundations of the world. The ground suddenly gives way, revealing an ancient underground cave system that swallows the dragon's massive, flailing form. Landing firmly on the unstable surface, Nozomu prepares to move with newfound speed to avoid being buried alive. He leaps through the crumbling landscape, using his expert training to evade the violent tremors and protect himself. From within the thick dust, the Dragon King searches for its elusive prey, while the air vibrates with magic. As a king among spirits, Tiamat begins weaving a spell of extraordinary power to end the persistent human nuisance. Realizing the danger, Nozomu lunges forward, but the dragon invokes its magic before he can take 3 steps. Suddenly, Master Shino intercedes with a fierce scream, manifesting a radiant light to block the monster's lethal magic. Finally, Nozomu frees himself from his shackles and dashes forward at high speed to join his master's struggle. Tiamat, the heresy of heresies sealed 5 millennia ago, remains an ancient and terrifying legend. Shino stands protectively before her disciple, noting his extreme misfortune in encountering such a godly creature. Nozomu coughs violently from internal injuries as his master prepares to engage the massive beast. A giant dragon claw looms overhead, while Shino quickly assesses the severity of her student's wounds. She initiates a diversionary strike, commanding Nozomu to flee while she holds the monster's focus. Pushing him away, she insists that staying together will only lead to their mutual destruction. The young warrior screams in frustration as he is forced to leave his master's side. Moving in a blur of speed, Shino closes the distance to challenge the dragon head-on. With lethal concentration, she readies her signature phantom blade technique to pierce the ancient creature. Her strike connects with an explosive force, sending shockwaves across the dragon's impenetrable and dark scales. Shino realizes the monster's hide is unexpectedly durable, her expression reflecting the mounting danger. Tiamat begins to manifest an immense surge of spiritual magic, glowing with a terrifying intensity. A relentless barrage of light rays descends upon the clearing, forcing the master into a desperate defense. She masterfully slices through 15 rays of light using a combination of raw skill and chi. The Dragon King retaliates with even greater force, launching a massive wave of 20 light rays. Grunting with exhaustion, she continues to parry the never-ending magical assault with her remaining strength. The master struggles as the waves of light rays continue their relentless bombardment of the area. Blinding energy consumes the battlefield, pushing Shino to the absolute limit of her physical endurance. Using her sword sheath to compensate for depleted chi, she battles the S-ranked might of Tiamat. Suddenly, Nozomu delivers a precise strike to the dragon's throat, causing an internal explosion of compressed chi. Nozomu unleashes a primal scream as he follows the mental path laid out for his final, desperate assault. He successfully slashes through the dragon's exposed skin, determined to land a decisive blow despite his fading strength. Drawing upon the momentum of his initial strike, he spins his body to deliver a second, even more powerful attack. Tiamat opens its massive jaws in a terrifying roar, baring its razor-sharp teeth as the battle reaches its peak. Despite his battered and blood-soaked appearance, Nozomu's eyes burn with an unyielding resolve to see this fight through. A devastating horizontal slash tears across the dragon's face, drawing thick, dark blood that stains the surrounding wasteland. He continues his relentless offensive, moving in a blur as the legendary creature struggles against the human's desperate ferocity. The Dragon King releases a ground-shaking howl of pain, its ancient and godly pride wounded by the persistent warrior. Even with these severe wounds, the monster attempts to shake Nozomu off its back to resume its magical bombardment. Concentrating every remaining drop of his chi into his right arm, Nozomu prepares for a final, terminal strike. He tightly grips the hilt of his katana, which remains wedged deep within the dragon's monstrous and scaled body. A massive torrent of internal energy erupts from the blade, rivaling the power of the highest-ranking magical spells. Blood sprays from the dragon's mouth as the internal explosion of chi begins to systematically dismantle its vital organs. The sheer force of the technique succeeds in blasting the dragon's head off along with its central nervous system. Fragments of scales and magical essence scatter into the air as the legendary predator finally meets its inevitable end. The massive neck of the beast remains upright for a final moment before the life completely leaves its body. A deafening thud resonates through the crater as the gargantuan carcass of Tiamat crashes onto the cold earth. The remains of the ancient Dragon King begin to burn and disintegrate, leaving only a hollowed-out and smoking crater. Nozomu collapses onto his back, his body broken and exhausted, staring up at the darkening sky in silent reflection. As he lies motionless amidst the ruins, a faint light begins to shine down upon the victorious but dying warrior. A blinding pillar of light erupts as Nozomu unleashes the path laid out for his final, desperate sword swing. Suspended in a radiant void, the young warrior feels his shackles shattering while raw energy surges through his body. Shino screams for her idiot disciple to wake up, her voice nearly drowned out by the terminal, magical discharge. Battered but unyielding, Nozomu focuses his resolve while his master watches with a mixture of fear and pure hope. A massive explosion of pure, white energy consumes the battlefield, signaling the reach of this legendary confrontation's ultimate climax. A brilliant brilliance washes over Nozomu's face as his consciousness drifts through a blinding realm of light and spirit. He finds himself in a mysterious, watery plain, where glowing chains represent the shackles of his repressed and hidden potential. Standing upon a vast, rippling surface, Nozomu gazes at the endless horizon while bound by his own internal mental state. The invisible chains manifest physically around his torso, glowing with a blurry light that pulsates with every heartbeat. Shivering with effort, he glares at the metal links near his neck, determined to break free from his stagnant heart. He leaps through the dreamlike dimension, the chains rattling loudly as they follow his every high speed and desperate movement. The giant eye of Tiamat looms in the darkness, watching the puny human's final resistance with divine and cold irritation. In this mental abyss, Nozomu stands defiantly against the legendary Dragon King, surrounded by a sea of glowing chains. The ancient monster finds itself entangled by the manifesting power of Nozomu's will, its godly strength finally meeting its match. Sweat drips down his face as he grips the chains around his neck, focusing his entire being on liberation. Tiamat releases one final roar, its massive jaws bound by the same shackles that once held Nozomu's heart in ice. Metal links sink into the quiet water below, the ripples marking the end of a long and painful internal struggle. Nozomu awakens slowly, wondering if the entire earth-shattering battle was nothing more than a vivid and terrifying dream. Shino leans in close with a look of extreme relief, confirming that her pupil has finally returned to his senses. Safe in his master's care, the exhausted young swordsman begins to process the reality of his survival against the dragon. Nozomu wakes up in a terrified panic, screaming about a monster while clutching his head in utter shock. Master Shino grumbles about her thankless task of nursing him for 3 days, while he falls back startled. Despite the lingering pain, he attempts to straighten his bandaged body while his master watches with sharp eyes. He slowly realizes that 3 full days have passed since his near-fatal encounter with the legendary and terrifying Tiamat. Gazing around the sparse interior of the master's humble cabin, he notes the total lack of unnecessary furniture. The dwelling remains incredibly basic, containing only the bare essentials needed for a simple and quiet forest life. Isolated deep within the woods, Shino's small wooden cabin serves as a secluded sanctuary for his long recovery. Still wrapped in bandages, Nozomu sits up and notices the overwhelming and pungent scent of potent healing medicine. Offering a deep bow, He sincerely thanks Shino for her care, while she reacts with an annoyed huff. Shino's expression remains stern as she recounts the needless worry his reckless actions put her through recently. The young swordsman looks down with a face full of deep regret while absorbing his master's harsh scolding. Concerned for his mentor's well-being, he asks Shino if she sustained any injuries during the brutal dragon battle. Waving her hand dismissively, the master explains she only overexerted her chi and is perfectly fine right now. A wave of genuine relief washes over the boy, causing him to exhale a heavy and long-awaited breath. Her tone shifts into a solemn note as she prepares to discuss the current state of his broken body. Sitting calmly before him, the master begins to reveal crucial information regarding the truth behind his recent victory. With a penetrating and focused stare, she demands his absolute attention for the significant revelations about to follow. Nozomu jolts in surprise, absorbing her words with a mixture of confusion and intense, sudden clarity of mind. She confirms the impossible truth that he actually managed to defeat Tiamat within the mysterious, ancient sealed world. Shino explains that the sealed world is a dubious legend created by dragons to contain their ruinous king. Shino reveals Nozomu defeated Tiamat and absorbed his essence, becoming a legendary and genuine dragon slayer. In ancient lore, dragon slayers were considered embodiments of immense strength and superhuman, fairy tale-like abilities. Historical records state their last appearance was 3 centuries ago, and they were long thought to be extinct. A mysterious, sparkling energy surrounds Nozomu's body as the full weight of this revelation sinks in. Stunned, he repeats the title Dragon Slayer, while grappling with his new myth-defying reality and identity. Shino remains focused, informing her pupil that there is one crucial matter they must immediately verify together. Nozomu examines his master's katana, realizing the weapon he used to kill the dragon carries significant history. Master Shino suddenly attacks. Steel clashes loudly. Holding her blade against his throat, Shino confirms her suspicions about his current physical and combat state. She explains that while he inherits a dragon's might, his innate ability suppression still hinders his movement. Looking at his bandaged hands, Nozomu considers the possibility that he is actually far stronger than he feels. Despite the legendary title, Shino bluntly notes that he doesn't seem to have actually gained much strength. A wave of sadness washes over Nozomu as he hears that his suppression thoroughly blocks his growth. Shino asks if he can consciously replicate the moment he broke his shackles during the terminal dragon battle. He focuses his mind, envisioning the breaking of the invisible chains that have long bound his potential. Nozomu screams in pain. To his shock, Shino reveals she cannot see the shimmering chains, proving they are a unique internal phenomenon. Shino watches her student intently, asking what his next move will be now that his path has changed. Silence falls over the cabin as Nozomu wonders what his future holds in this unforgiving and competitive world. Shino warns that his new power will inevitably attract status, glory, authority, envy, and even man-eating fiends. Nozomu recoils in horror, his mind reeling as he processes the endless burdens that come with his power. The master's gaze turns sharp, emphasizing that once this cycle of attraction begins, there will be no end. Sitting on his sickbed, the bandaged young warrior clutches his katana while Shino prepares to ask another question. A look of deep uncertainty crosses Nozomu's face as he struggles to find an answer for his mentor. Shino bluntly asserts that he has no remaining reason to push his broken body any further than this. She reminds him that Lisa no longer loves him, forcing him to confront the painful reality of their separation. Nozomu remains silent, his expression mirroring the shock of hearing his master question his motives and academy techniques. Shino explains that her rare swordplay style will serve as a safety net, preventing him from hitting rock bottom. She observes his internal conflict, noting that giving up is often the only reason for such a fall. Looking into his eyes, she searches for a spark of the will that once drove him to train relentlessly. Memories of being ostracized and alone flash through his mind, revealing how his environment distorted his noble goals. He reflects on his original oath to support Lisa's dream, a promise now twisted into a means of escape. Shino points out that he is trapped by the past, unable to see the present reality of his life. For now, the master advises him to prioritize physical recovery, as he cannot return home in this state. The quiet and isolated cabin in the woods remains his only refuge while he mends his many injuries. Sitting amidst the silence, the young swordsman gazes at the weapons that have defined his entire difficult journey. Shino reveals there is still more to be told. catching Nozomu off guard with her mysterious and grave tone. He wonders what further secrets could possibly remain after everything he has already endured and discovered today. Clenching his fist, the boy prepares himself for the next revelation that will surely change his path forever. Shino welcomes Nozomu back with a tender embrace, her presence a sudden comfort after his brush with death. She gently rubs his cheek, her touch conveying a warmth he hasn't felt in a very long time. With tearful eyes, Nozomu listens as his master praises his incredible struggle against the legendary Dragon King. He leans into her, finally allowing the heavy weight of his near-death experience to slowly slip away. They both show signs of extreme exhaustion, their bodies pushed far beyond any normal human physical limits. Shino offers a soft, weary smile that belies the intense battles they have both recently endured together. Nozomu stares at her in realization, overwhelmed by the depth of care his master has shown him. He whimpers while realizing she stayed by his side throughout his entire 3-day recovery in the forest. The young warrior mentally returns to reality while the quiet cabin provides a much-needed moment of peace. Tears fall as he processes the trauma of the dragon fight and the kindness of his solitary master. Shino reflects on his secret status, marveling that this broken boy is the world's first new dragon slayer. Outside, the shadows of his past and the dragon's legacy loom over the quiet and distant grounds. She wonders about the sheer amount of mental strain he has been forced to endure all alone. Flashbacks reveal Shino's origins as a talented prodigy in the Far Eastern Mikagure style of legendary swordplay. Her glorious military career was celebrated by all, earning her high honors and praise from the kingdom's nobility. She found love after her sister introduced a young man who eventually became her beloved fiancé and disciple. Tragedy struck during her wedding when a shocking and groundless accusation of adultery suddenly ruined the ceremony. Betrayed by fake evidence and ignored by her peers, Shino watched her entire life crumble into absolute ruin. Years later, she discovered her own sister was the malicious culprit who sought to destroy her happiness entirely. Exiled and abandoned, Shino was cast out of her family with nowhere left to turn in this world. Shino's sister reveals her true, twisted nature as she violently seizes control of the situation. Then, in a cold and final farewell, she brushes through the hair of her now broken sibling. While Shino weeps in absolute despair, her sister whispers a cruel promise to live her life instead. Thereafter, the disgraced warrior vanishes from the estate without uttering a single word to her former family. Eventually, she abandons her homeland and wanders across the continent toward the untouched wilderness of the Spatium Forest. Drawing a parallel between their lives, she acknowledges the deep-seated pain they both carry from being abandoned. Suddenly, the heavy silence is broken as Nozomu lets out a sharp and pained gasp of physical agony. The young man struggles for breath, his body trembling violently from the overwhelming strain of his recent battle. Subsequently, Shino realizes he suffers from death sleep disease, a condition where one's life force slowly whittles away. Meanwhile, memories of the terminal struggle against the ancient Dragon King flash through his failing consciousness once more. He recalls the harsh reality that the world rarely functions according to one's desires or noble intentions. Although cases of recovery are rare, the master holds him tight as he battles the unidentified and lethal ailment. Looking down at her student, she laments the many things they still have left to discuss together. 1 week passes before the traveling pair finally arrives at the towering and majestic gates of Alakazam City. Nozomu expresses his deep gratitude while the master insists it is only natural to care for her disciple. He reflects on the specialized natural medicines she prepared to bolster his body's inherent and vital healing abilities. Furthermore, the young boy begins to notice a subtle yet distinct change in his master's usual stern behavior. She stumbles over her words while trying to show a caring side beneath her mask of strict discipline. Standing before the massive stone fortifications, they are both struck by the sheer scale of the legendary city. Finally, Nozomu offers a gentle smile and asks if she would like him to personally guide her through. Nozomu and Shino stroll through Alakazam, where the master admits her surprising lack of prior visits to the city, while Shino expresses genuine concern regarding Nozomu's neglected academic duties and his future at the academy, prompting the nervous student to acknowledge that a week of unexcused absences will undoubtedly lead to serious consequences. Continuing through the bustling marketplace, they pass under a massive stone archway as the local commerce thrives around them. Master Shino becomes wide-eyed with childlike wonder, captivated by the exotic spices and strange seeds displayed at market stalls. As the day wanes, They walk past a tranquil park and a stone bridge, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Eventually, the pair reaches the academy's outer boundary, gazing up at the imposing structures that define Nozomu's life. With their journey complete, the master calmly announces her plans to return to her solitary dwelling in the forest. Nozomu offers a respectful bow, expressing profound gratitude for the life-saving care and guidance his master provided. Suddenly, the morning bell tolls across the campus, jarring Nozomu back to the reality of his looming final exams. Despite his worry over lost points, Shino playfully dismisses the concern given his already lengthy and unexcused absence. She then commands him to return to her cabin tonight, as many important matters still require their attention. Nozomu turns in confusion, his mind racing with questions about what further secrets his mentor intends to reveal. Though she promises to speak more when the time is right, she quickly urges him to hurry along. Grumbling about the delay, the young swordsman sprints toward his classroom while his master watches with a faint smile. Shino decides to explore the city alone, regretting that her disciple cannot accompany her on this brief excursion. Meanwhile, the narrator highlights the extreme pressure of final exams, which dictate every student's future rank and placement. Back in the classroom, the homeroom teacher accepts a vague excuse while peers choose to ignore the mysterious absence. Morning sessions conclude without further incident, allowing Nozomu a brief respite from the prying eyes of his classmates. However, his teacher confronts him during lunch, demanding the truth about the secrets he is clearly hiding. Nozomu tries to explain his absence to teacher Henri by claiming a monster attack in the forest. Henri immediately presses him for details, her expression turning sharp with concern for his safety. He fabricated a story about encountering a mad bear in the eastern woods to cover his tracks. The teacher questions if he met one of the famous siblings, and Nozomu awkwardly confirms the lie. Henry's face darkens with suspicion as she senses the inconsistencies in his poorly constructed cover story. Perspiring under her intense scrutiny, the young swordsman struggles to maintain his composure and fake confidence. She inquires about his current physical state, and he claims a brief fever kept him bedridden recently. Henry demands to know why he failed to notify the dorms or the academy during his disappearance. Looking away, he laments his lack of friends while insisting the illness was simply too severe. Internally, he grapples with the guilt of lying about the terrifying Dragon King encounter to protect Shino. Suddenly, Henry bursts into tears, accusing him of finding her incompetent and completely untrustworthy as an instructor. Startled by her emotional outburst, Nozomu freezes in shock as the atmosphere turns incredibly tense and awkward. She reveals her knowledge of the Mad Bear's prior defeat, exposing his lie through keen observation and logic. Leaning in with desperate intensity, the teacher pleads for him to finally open up and speak honestly. Nozomu finds himself nearly mesmerized by her dangerous beauty, which makes keeping his secrets feel like a sin. He realizes her natural charm is a powerful weapon, labeling her unintentional, seductive aura as truly evil. Meanwhile, Iristina watches the bustling campus with an intensity that suggests her mind is elsewhere right now. The scene shifts to the young Somia as she approaches her elder sister during the academy's lunch break. Amidst the steam of fresh food, the curious girl asks if the recent confusion has been resolved. Resting on a bench, Somia waits for an answer regarding the misunderstanding involving the mysterious and lonely Nozomu. Iristina reveals to Somia that she spoke with Nozomu recently, reflecting on their unexpected and significant encounter. Whereas Somia listens with curiosity, wondering about the nature of their conversation and the boy's mysterious character. Consequently, Iristina smiles gently while contemplating her growing interest in the lone and misunderstood swordsman. Meanwhile, Somia notes that Nozomu has been noticeably absent from school during lunch breaks and after-school hours lately. Subsequently, Iristina confirms his disappearance, her gaze drifting as she recalls her own failed attempts to find him. She then explains her habit of waiting at the entrance, unwilling to disturb him despite her mounting concerns. Furthermore, onlookers marvel at Iristina's unprecedented level of concern for a male student, sensing a significant internal change. Suddenly, the school bell interrupts Nozomu's conversation with Henri, providing him a desperate chance to escape. As lunch ends, the sisters sit together while Iristina packs away her things with a quiet, thoughtful sigh. Thereafter, Somia boldly asks if she can invite Nozomu to her upcoming birthday party, startling her elder sister. She explains that Nozomu is a true friend who rescued her precious and sentimental family heirloom from danger. Blushing deeply, Iristina admits that Nozomu often carries a look of profound loneliness behind his gentle smile. She expresses a sincere desire to see her friends happy, even if only for a brief moment today. In her thoughts, Iristina reflects on wanting her friends to smile, recalling Nozomu's accumulated silent effort. Although his past remains a mystery, she sympathizes with the loneliness that has driven him into a corner. Resolved, Iristina vows to clear their misunderstanding and promises to extend the birthday invitation on Somia's behalf, resulting in Somia beaming with pure joy, grateful for her sister's support and the prospect of reunion. Elsewhere, the Grand Academy stands silent under the clear sky as the afternoon physical training session begins outdoors. Notably, Enri, the enigmatic teacher's assistant, reveals a sharp and calculating gaze as she monitors the class. Finally, Nozomu focuses on his stretches, unaware that the assistant is closely observing his every physical movement. Low-rank classes typically manage with a single assistant instructor during these high-stakes training sessions. Afternoon practicals reach their climax with intense mock battles designed to push students to their limits. Mars Dickens looms over the arena, once again paired against the student he considers a total failure. Nozomu stands firm, clutching his training katana while preparing to face his aggressive and powerful rival. Taunting his opponent, Mars sneers that victory is impossible regardless of who Nozomu actually fights today. Mocking laughter echoes as Mars prepares his heavy blade, ignoring Nozomu's quiet and steady focus. Executing a practice swing, Nozomu notes that the substitute weapon responds well to his refined techniques. A sharp, piercing gaze reveals the depth of concentration within the young swordsman's heart. In his mind, glowing chains manifest around his soul, representing the suppressed power he desperately wants. He feels the urge to break those shackles and finally release his long-dormant and incredible strength. Recalling his vision of the shackled dragon, he decides against unleashing that dangerous energy right now. Focusing back on reality, he observes the training equipment while preparing for the imminent confrontation. The instructor signals the start of the match, drawing all eyes toward the tense and silent arena. Mars immediately explodes into motion, charging forward with a heavy strike to end the fight quickly. Nozomu exhales sharply, centering his breathing as the massive weight of the attack approaches his position. Determination burns brightly in his eyes as he tracks the path of the incoming and lethal blade. Mars screams for Nozomu to get crushed under his overwhelming downward swing with pure and raw aggression. Steel clashes violently, sending sparks flying as Nozomu successfully blocks the heavy greatsword with his katana. A look of genuine shock crosses Mars's face as his initial strike fails to break his opponent's defense. Gritting his teeth, the young warrior holds his ground against the crushing pressure of the superior rival. Nozomu maneuvers through the arena with incredible agility, narrowly evading another one of Mars's heavy and devastating strikes. Stunned, Mars realizes his most powerful swing was successfully blocked by the student he deemed a total failure. The two combatants lock blades in a tense struggle, with Mars gritting his teeth in visible and rising frustration. Shouting in rage, the bully continues his relentless assault, while Nozomu maintains a calm, focused, and steady defense. A flurry of high-speed exchanges echoes through the arena as the mock battle reaches a new level of intensity. Lunging forward, Mars strikes with all his might, but Nozomu anticipates the movement and prepares a calculated counter move. Suddenly, Mars launches a brutal physical strike that catches Nozomu completely off guard during the chaotic blade lock. He follows up with a heavy kick, determined to physically overpower the student who dared to defy him. Gasping for air, Nozomu focuses his gaze, refusing to let the pain cloud his strategic and tactical thinking. Backing away, the young swordsman creates some distance, while Mars prepares to unleash his most dangerous chi technique. Mars screams insults, calling Nozomu trash as he manifests a massive swirling vortex of internal and spirit energy. Witnessing the surge, Nozomu wonders exactly how much chi his arrogant rival has been hiding all this time. Consumed by hatred, Mars vows to crush his opponent while his weapon becomes engulfed in a howling storm. He activates the Dust Wind Blade, a specialized technique that enshrouds his sword in lethal, high-speed wind currents. Nozomu analyzes the high-density compressed wind, noting the intense atmospheric pressure emitted by the enshrouded and glowing blade. The speed of the slashing attacks increases dramatically, allowing Mars to unleash a series of powerful wind slashes. First, Nozomu tracks a wide diagonal slash, focusing entirely on avoiding the edge of the enshrouded training greatsword. Next comes a blindingly fast left swipe, forcing the trainee to use every ounce of his refined physical agility. Moving in a blur, he executes a sequence of precise evasive maneuvers to stay just outside the lethal range. Finally, he carefully calculates the distance of the wind pressure, preparing himself for a decisive and final counterattack. Nozomu observes Mars's windblade, realizing that despite its speed, the lethal attack remains entirely possible to dodge. Dodging the increasingly repetitive strikes with ease, the young warrior begins reading several moves ahead of his opponent. Mars growls in frustration, unable to comprehend why his massive blade repeatedly fails to reach the agile student. Explanation of the wind spirit's protection increasing power and accuracy for wind-based spells and chi. In addition, the high-density shroud of wind emits intense pressure, capable of blowing away any poor defense. Noticing the lack of clumsy movements, Mars realizes Nozomu's dodges and judgments have become incredibly sharp. Nozomu reflects on how his suppression ability once made him helpless against even basic downward slash attacks. Steel rings out as he successfully fends off the heavy strikes without ever losing his combat stance. Becoming a legendary Dragon Slayer has granted him a subtle yet significant boost to his base physical abilities. Drawing upon his grueling training, he perfectly executes the intricate sword techniques he learned from his master, Shino. While maintaining a perfect and steady defense, the young swordsman searches for an opportunity to counterattack. Mars screams in defiance, refusing to be outshone by a lowly student while enhancing his blade's power. A faint but determined look forms on Nozomu's face as he prepares to shift his momentum. Focusing his resolve, he acknowledges that he can finally engage in this battle exactly as he desires. Mars experiences a surge of dread, witnessing the literal and metaphorical shackles Nozomu has finally overcome. Wide-eyed with disbelief, the bully struggles to comprehend the true extent of his opponent's secret, intense training. Nozomu anticipates the heavy overhead swing, positioning his training weapon to intercept the greatsword's crushing weight. Tracking a sudden left swipe, he uses his sharpened senses to stay perfectly outside the lethal range. Consumed by primal rage, Mars bellows that he will never accept defeat from someone he considers garbage. Seizing a critical opening, Nozomu shouts his intent while launching a final, decisive strike to end the fight. Nozomu executes a high-speed dash, his focused gaze tracking Mars's every opening during the intense mock battle. The two students clash in a flurry of dust, neither willing to yield as the arena erupts with power. Mars screams in frustration, realizing Nozomu intentionally led him into a trap to neutralize his superior wind magic. Mars prepares a new chi technique called Dust Splitter Ram, a powerful derivative of his signature Dustwind blade style. Meanwhile, Nozomu counters using Flash Step, a growth-type movement technique allowing for instantaneous and complex linear maneuvers. With exquisite muscle control, Nozomu moves his entire body in perfect unison to maximize the lethal force of his strike. The converged wind blade rushes forward like a massive battering ram, threatening to shatter any defense in its path. Nozomu stays low to the ground, using his refined agility to weave through the chaotic and high-speed wind currents. Catching his opponent off guard, Nozomu closes the distance while Mars curses his inability to track the low-life trash. Mars looks around in a panic, completely losing sight of Nozomu amidst the swirling clouds of dust and debris. Nozomu's eyes burn with cold determination as he prepares to deliver a finishing blow to his arrogant, bullying rival. Standing firm, the young swordsman enters a striking stance, while Mars stares at him with mounting dread and confusion. Sweating under the intense pressure, Mars realizes the massive gap in their skill has finally and completely narrowed today. Nozomu grips the hilt of his practiced katana, ready to unleash the masterclass techniques he has practiced in isolation. Mars swings desperately, hoping to land one lucky strike, but his form is sloppy and riddled with obvious openings. A blinding flash of light signals Nozomu's final move as he effortlessly bypasses Mars's defense with superior tactical speed. The Academy's morning bell chimes loudly across the campus, signaling the end of the current afternoon training session. Holding his blade at Mars's throat, Nozomu stands victorious while the instructor declares the mock battle officially over. Mr. Var notes the proximity of final exams, reminding the class that their future rankings depend on these results. Mars pants heavily in defeat while Nozomu calmly sheathes his weapon, the metallic click echoing through the silent arena. Nozomu sprints away through the hallway, leaving a bewildered Mars standing alone in the training arena. Mars clutches his chest while grappling with a strange, hazy feeling about his opponent's sudden growth. Irritation boils within him as he questions if Nozomu was merely hiding his true, exceptional combat capabilities. Subsequently, his gaze hardens while he considers the possibility that he completely underestimated the boy he bullied. He recalls how Nozomu used to accept abuse without resisting, making his current display even more infuriating. It becomes clear that the distraction Nozomu used was a calculated part of his newfound tactical brilliance. Gritting his teeth, Mars finally acknowledges that his rival has definitely become significantly stronger than before. Furthermore, he wonders if Nozomu possessed this strength all along, while the Academy remained blissfully unaware. Meanwhile, Iristina catches a glimpse of the fleeing boy and reacts with a look of pure surprise. Nozomu continues his desperate sprint across the Academy grounds, focused entirely on reaching his secret destination. Although Aristina calls out to him, the young swordsman vanishes through the gate without hearing her plea. Exhausted and out of breath, she stops running while realizing she has missed her chance once again. She leans over while panting heavily, wondering what could possibly drive him to be in such a hurry. Racing through the dense forest, Nozomu worries that his battle with Tiamat has permanently changed his master. He finally reaches the secluded cabin, finding Shino casually snacking while he gasps for air in exhaustion. Thereafter, the student mentions approaching exams, hoping his mentor will allow him time for last-minute studying. Shino dismisses his concerns with a blush, teasing him about rejecting a beautiful woman's invitation so coldly. She reaches into her basket of treats, selecting a small cookie while her behavior remains unusually playful. Nozomu watches her with a subtle smile, noticing that his master might be surprisingly weak to alcohol. Suddenly, she pulls him into a painful arm lock, demanding he sit beside her for the evening. Nozomu reflects on Shino's perfect chi control, recognizing skills belonging to someone experienced in hurting others. After a sharp physical blow, Nozomu teases his master about her age while birds fly overhead. Sitting outside the cabin, Shino suggests they talk for a while. Sensing the weight of the moment, Nozomu listens intently, his expression softening as he prepares to hear his master's honest and personal thoughts. Amidst the quiet woods, Shino begins rambling about her homeland and the family she still deeply loves. She admits she never expected to have such a pleasant conversation again, having intentionally avoided others before. Nozomu offers a bright smile, moving Shino to realize how much he cherished his supposedly incompetent teacher. Looking melancholic, Shino wishes she could have lived by his side if her circumstances were only different. Crossing blades for a final time, Shino decides to entrust Nozomu's future heart to another worthy companion. Under a massive ancient tree, she suddenly announces the start of his final lesson. Shocking her pupil, confused by the finality of her tone, Nozomu watches as his master's expression turns cold and distant. Shino walks into the dark trees, declaring this the absolute last time she will ever train him. With a chilling gaze, she reveals the final lesson is a serious battle to the death between them. Nozomu's hand trembles on his sword hilt, desperately demanding to know the meaning behind her terrifying declaration. His master keeps her back turned while he struggles to process the reality of a lethal confrontation. Believing it must be a cruel joke, he begs for an answer while his face pales in shock. Coldly, Shino states she has nothing more to say. Cutting off any hope for a peaceful resolution, she glares back, questioning if reasons even matter when someone has already decided to take your life. Nozomu stands paralyzed by terror, his wide eyes reflecting the sudden and brutal shift in their relationship. He screams for his master to answer him while she disappears into the shadows of the forest. Shino transforms into a blur of motion as Nozomu braces for the sudden, lethal intensity of her assault. Executing a high-speed dash that kicks up dust, she closes the distance with terrifying and supernatural grace. A relentless barrage of slashes rains down on Nozomu, forcing him into a desperate, backpedaling defensive maneuver. The sheer force of a direct impact rattles his bones, sending him reeling across the uneven forest floor. Lunging forward with a desperate cry, Nozomu demands to know why his master is suddenly trying to kill him. Shino remains chillingly silent, her gaze fixed with a cold, murderous intent that Nozomu has never witnessed before. He recalls her unreasonable training sessions, where questions were forbidden and every mistake was met with brutal discipline. A near-lethal strike whistles past his head, shredding the surrounding air as the battle reaches a fever pitch. Despite her previous harshness, he realizes she has never actually crossed the line into true murderous intent until now. Steel clashes violently in a chaotic spray of sparks while Nozomu fights with every ounce of his remaining strength. Precise and never-ending blows characterize the master's assault, systematically testing the limits of Nozomu's physical and mental endurance. Shino shifts into a low, lethal stance as the speed and density of her attacks escalate to terrifying heights. Grunting from the immense pressure, Nozomu barely intercepts a devastating blow that threatens to shatter his training sword. He attempts a high-speed counter, but the master's experienced reflexes allow her to stay one step ahead. Utilizing the same school of swordsmanship, they trade blows in a high-speed dance of lethal and refined technique. Trails of light from their clashing blades illuminate the dark forest, highlighting the massive gap in their experience. Cursing his inability to find an opening, the young warrior is forced back by another overwhelming physical strike. Shino demonstrates her mastery by intermingling her sheath and martial arts into a seamless and deadly combat style. Her key strengthened sheath becomes a secondary weapon capable of easily breaking human bones with a single well-placed blow. Nozomu struggles as her attacks become increasingly dense, fully realizing the insurmountable difference in their current combat capabilities. Nozomu initiates a desperate dual-wielding counterattack, using both his sword and its sheath to find an opening. Focusing his internal energy onto the point of impact, despite the mounting numbness spreading through his arms. Steel continues to ring out as the master and disciple exchange high-speed blows across the forest clearing. Suddenly, Shino lands a devastating strike that shatters his defense and sends a shockwave through his body. The impact forces Nozomu to skid backward across the dirt, while he desperately tries to minimize the trauma. Another violent collision erupts between them, kicking up a massive cloud of dust amidst the ancient trees. Grunting in agony, the young warrior feels as though his internal organs are being torn completely apart. Realizing that basic techniques are useless, he prepares to risk everything on one final and powerful gamble. Nozomu sinks into a low, concentrated stance while tightly gripping his katana for a decisive and terminal strike. He launches himself forward with his most reliable technique, determined to break through his master's cold resolve. Unleashing the phantom blade, he pours every ounce of his spirit into a single, invisible, and lethal slash. However, Shino reacts with supernatural speed, her own weapon creating a wall of overwhelming and refined power. The young man watches in horror as his ultimate attack is systematically canceled out by her superior skill. Before he can even blink, his master follows up with an immediate and high-speed counteroffensive. The atmosphere turns heavy as Shino's blade descends, cutting through the air with terrifying and unavoidable precision. Wide-eyed and drenched in sweat, Nozomu freezes under the shadow of the approaching and lethal steel edge. A sense of impending doom washes over him as he realizes he has left himself completely defenseless. Blood sprays into the air as the master's sword carves a deep and agonizing wound across his chest. Coughing violently, he understands that Shino countered his phantom blade with perfect accuracy and lethal intent. Finally, Nozomu collapses onto the blood-stained grass while his master watches over him with a chilling stare. Battered and bleeding, Nozomu lies on the forest floor while Shino looms over him with cold indifference. Staring up with a fractured gaze, the young warrior realizes with crushing certainty that he cannot win. Shino demands he release his suppressed power, insisting it is the only way to survive her lethal assault. Sweat drips into his eyes as he grapples with the terrifying risk of unleashing the darkness within. Clutching his broken sword, he acknowledges this desperate moment as his final chance to turn the tide. He contemplates how the dragon Tiamat's ancient soul now lives within him, bound by his own suppression. Blood stains his uniform as he considers tearing off the metaphorical chains that restrain his ultimate potential. An unshakable will ignites in his eyes, cutting through the physical agony of his many grievous wounds. Tiamat's predatory gaze manifests in his mind, reflecting centuries of resentment and power waiting to be freed. Narrowing his focus, Nozomu prepares to face his master one last time with everything on the line. Shino questions his hesitation, while the silence of the woods emphasizes the life-or-death nature of the duel. Suddenly, the air shatters with a deafening impact as the master executes another high-speed and devastating maneuver. Blades clash in a flurry of silver light, but Nozomu's failing strength leaves him wide open once more. His vision begins to grow dim while blood pools beneath him, signaling the limits of his mortal endurance. Falling into a cold sea of numbness, Nozomu watches his senses fade as he faces imminent defeat. The weight of death hangs over his blade as the world slowly disappears into a dark, silent abyss. Catching a glimpse of her face, he sees a heart-wrenching expression that doesn't match her murderous actions. As life slips away, he wonders why his master looks like she is about to burst into tears. A final thought echoes through his fading consciousness as he prepares for the end of his difficult journey. Shino reveals she contracted death sleep disease during the Tiamat fight and has only one night left to live. Nozomu reflects on the disease, a condition well known and feared by chi users across the land. He laments the lack of time, wishing his mentor had controlled her energy to live longer. Shino recounts the betrayal by her family that forced her to flee to this foreign, untouched continent. She highlights their striking similarities, noting how they were both abandoned and mocked by those they trusted. Seeking isolation in the deep woods, she admits she once had nothing and didn't care for living. Meeting Nozomu initially irritated her, yet his refusal to give up on life deeply touched her core. Tears stream down her face as she makes a final, selfish request for Nozomu to accept her wish. With her end in sight, the student realizes that convincing her to live would betray her long-held intentions. He stares at the glowing chains, understanding this battle is the only way she can convey her heart. Resolving not to run from her final wish or the academy, he prepares to face his reality. Determined to look her in the eye again, he vows not to let her make that face anymore. Suddenly, the ancient and terrifying form of Tiamat returns. Looming over the young warrior in a vision, the Dragon King stares down its prey, its massive presence echoing the overwhelming struggle for survival and progress. A gargantuan tail sweeps across the battlefield, shattering the ground and kicking up a storm of jagged rocks. Nozomu is sent hurtling through the air by a massive impact, his body trailing blood across the sky. Crashing hard, the young man skids through the dirt while the legendary beast continues its relentless and brutal assault. The black predator releases a bone-chilling roar, its ancient and godly malice vibrating through the very atmosphere itself. Face pressed against the earth, the battered swordsman struggles to remain conscious amidst the absolute and total destruction. He lies mangled in the grass, his limbs losing all sensation as if he were sinking into death. Standing on the edge of a precipice, the warrior faces the gargantuan beast one last time to decide fate. Nozomu attempts a desperate dual-wielding counterattack, while his master remains a relentless blur of lethal motion. Despite his limbs growing numb, he focuses his internal energy on the exact point of impact. The young warrior is forced back again, his training blade barely holding against Shino's overwhelming physical pressure. A sudden strike connects with his leg, sending sharp jolts of pain through his already battered body. Sweating and gasping, he realizes he must find a way to neutralize the force of her blows. Shino unleashes a massive wind-like slash that tears through the forest clearing with incredible destructive power. Clutching his side in agony, Nozomu feels the true weight of her attack crushing his internal organs. Understanding that shallow techniques are futile, he prepares to risk everything on one final, decisive movement. He tightly grips the hilt of his katana, resolving to gamble his entire spirit on this moment. Entering a low, concentrated stance, he readies the draw for his most reliable and practiced combat technique. With a fierce cry, he invokes the phantom blade to deliver a single, terminal strike against his master. A blinding explosion of energy erupts as Shino counters his ultimate move with her own superior technique. Nozomu watches in silent horror as the master systematically cancels out his most powerful offensive strike. Before he can recover, she charges through the dissipating energy with her own high-speed phantom blade attack. The master delivers a precise and lightning-fast slash that bypasses his guard in a single second. Wide-eyed and paralyzed by shock, the young swordsman faces the terrifying reality of his imminent defeat. Sensing a sudden shift in the air, he realizes he has been completely outmaneuvered by her experience. Blood sprays violently as the lethal edge carves a deep and agonizing wound across Nozomu's unprotected chest. Coughing through the blood, he understands that her ki-enhanced counter matched his trajectory with perfect and deadly accuracy. Finally, he collapses onto the earth as Shino's masterful skills prove superior to his raw, suppressed power. Shino lets out a fierce battle cry, taunting her student to face her head-on in their terminal duel. Swirling currents of magical energy illuminate the ancient woods as the intensity of the struggle reaches new heights. Recognizing his growth as a dragon slayer, She experiences a momentary shiver from the sheer power of his strikes. Playfully mocking him, she asks why he can't be more gentle with a lady despite their lethal exchange. Shino viciously insults Nozomu for being a loser, abandoned by his lover, while their blades clash with explosive force. The battlefield echoes with their mutual verbal barbs as they trade both physical strikes and cutting psychological blows. Nozomu retorts that he is sick of her foul temper, his words startling the wildlife in the nearby trees. Moving with high-speed grace, they weave through the forest undergrowth, their movements creating a blur of combat motion. She unleashes the seismic cannon, a devastating chi technique designed to blow the opponent away with compressed internal energy. Shouting another insult, the master labels Nozomu an enemy of all women while relentlessly pursuing her aggressive assault. Shino's face contorts with rage as she dismisses his skills, calling him nothing more than a talentless hack. Nozomu maintains a cold, unwavering focus, his eyes reflecting a strategic mind looking for the slightest tactical opening. Sparks erupt from their clashing steel as they continue their high-speed and deadly dance among the forest foliage. A sharp metallic sound rings out as a blade is drawn with incredible speed for another decisive exchange. A massive explosion of pure chi consumes the clearing as they both utilize the devastating shockwave strike technique simultaneously. Emerging from the smoke, Shino demands that her disciple finally truly understand the terrifying depth of her power. The narrator explains that fusing dance and combat creates ritual martial arts, a style offered as a prayer. They engage in the cycle of rebirth, a complex ritual martial art that utilizes specific physical kata as offerings. Attacking with these specific movements transforms surrounding magical energies into a potent and specialized form of ritual magic. Every step of their dance strengthens their bodies with surrounding energy, turning the forest into a cacophony of sound. Nozomu's limited magical background normally prevents him from combining techniques, yet he defies expectations through sheer effort. Master Shino acknowledges his incredible growth, amazed that he mastered her special move in under 2 years. Focused determination, diligent study grants him mastery over chi control, allowing him to perform high-level techniques with a calm mind. Freed from his bonds, he overcomes beings of absolute strength that few on the continent could ever challenge. Shattering shackles. He achieves a remarkable feat by reversing lost chi into gain. Finally reaching his master's level of power, high-speed battle continues. Dust erupts, chi effect swirls. Nozomu screams for his master as she collapses, the sudden finality of their duel echoing through the forest. He reflects on the phantom blade, flash technique, which fires an ultimate chi blade at an incredible speed. Shino stands firm. She praises his immense growth, admitting there is truly nothing more she can teach her now powerful disciple. Cradling her dying form, Nozomu hears her last words of gratitude for accepting her final and selfish request. Shino laments her failures while urging him to always move forward and never become trapped by his past. Tears drip slowly. Exhausted, she closes her eyes for a final sleep, while sunlight filters through the ancient and silent trees. Gripping his sword, Nozomu offers a final, tearful thank you to the master who changed his life forever. A solitary blade stands as a grave marker amidst wildflowers, honoring the memory of a legendary teacher. Nozomu bows his head in sorrow, acknowledging his familiarity with the terrifying and fatal nature of death-sleep disease. Tears well in his eyes as he questions why they couldn't have spent more time finding a cure together. Shino recounts the painful betrayal by her family that eventually led her to flee to this isolated continent alone. Struck by her words, Nozomu realizes they are incredibly similar, both having carried the weight of profound abandonment. Looking back, the master describes her former life in the forest as a hollow existence, where death seemed welcome. She admits that meeting Nozomu changed her, as his unyielding will to live eventually reached her frozen heart. Crying softly, she presents her final selfish request, desperate to leave something meaningful behind after years of running. Battered and bruised, Nozomu accepts that trying to save her now would only disrespect her long-chosen final path. He stares at the glowing chains, resolving to honor her wish even as the end of her life approaches. Gripping the links, he realizes that fleeing now would mean never being able to face his master again. With absolute determination, the young warrior refuses to continue running away from his painful reality or her sacrifice. Nozomu vows to keep his master from crying, his resolve echoing through a vision of the legendary Dragon King. Charging forward, He faces the overwhelming darkness while the memories of his past training fuel his every movement. A gargantuan dragon tail sweeps across the battlefield, shattering the ground and pinning the young warrior to the earth. Blood spatters across the sky as the intensity of the spiritual struggle reaches a violent and chaotic peak. Impact sends him hurtling through the air, his body failing under the weight of the dragon's superior might. The ancient beast releases a deafening roar, its malice vibrating through the very foundation of the young man's soul. Lying in the dirt, he hears a voice questioning his hesitation amidst the absolute and crushing destruction. He faces the cold reality of death, his body broken and bleeding while his consciousness begins to fade away. Shino explains that she contracted the terminal disease during their fight with Tiamat and has only one night left. Classmates whisper cruel insults about Nozomu's makeup exams, wondering why he still hasn't quit the academy yet. Dark eyes reflect the cold judgment of peers who believe he should finally recognize his own inherent limitations. Salmanati Academy remains an elite gathering place for the continent's most talented individuals, fostering a harsh competitive spirit. This merit-based system relies heavily on social rank, creating a dark underside of discrimination and intense peer pressure. Consequently, the top-tier students naturally look down on others, reinforcing the rigid and unforgiving hierarchy of the school. Gifted students from diverse homelands often find themselves forgotten and buried within the academy's demoralizing lower-ranked classes. Lower-ranked students frequently become targets for others to vent their deep-seated insecurities and daily frustrations upon. Nozomu remains anchored at the absolute bottom of this social ladder, enduring the collective negativity of the student body. Sudden shock ripples through the classroom as students react to an unexpected development during the tense morning session. Despite the overwhelming hostility, Nozomu's gaze remains incredibly sharp and filled with a silent, growing sense of resolve. He stands centered among his judging peers, a solitary figure prepared to face whatever challenges the new year brings. Miss Honri enters with a cheerful greeting, announcing her continued role as the instructor for the 10th ranked class. She encourages her students, asserting that they are all capable individuals who simply haven't mastered their unique skills yet. The teacher emphasizes that self-knowledge is far more vital than the opinions of others in this competitive environment. Nozomu listens intently to her words, finding a rare spark of inspiration amidst the constant gloom of the classroom. She offers a warm, encouraging smile, hoping to reach the hearts of the students who have been labeled failures. Rumors circulate about Nozomu's injuries during the exam, while the instructor begins calling out the students for roll. Contemplating the instructor's history, Mars wonders which year the talented Henri-sensei actually graduated from this prestigious academy. Nozomu bears the weight of new insults in silence, his posture revealing the lingering physical strain on his body. Mars maintains a deadly serious expression, his intense focus suggesting he sees far more than the mocking crowd does. Students gather as the narrator explains that elite classes benefit from having several assistant instructors present. In the third year, group battles become the norm for practical lessons, focusing on integrated techniques. Nozomu watches his peers while pondering his next move in the face of these new requirements. Teams gain vital experience facing diverse threats like giant serpents. Yet Nozomu fears he will be alone. Unexpectedly, the powerful Mars Dickens approaches the outcast, standing tall with a look of stern judgment. Nozomu reacts with visible shock as a bizarre and completely unprecedented social interaction begins to unfold. The surrounding crowd erupts in disbelief, questioning why anyone would ever consider inviting a bottom-ranked failure. Murmurs fill the air, while students gossip about Mars's sudden and highly controversial decision in the arena. Mars reveals his own isolation, admitting he doubted anyone would team up with him given his reputation. A heavy silence falls as Nozomu processes the offer, his eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion. Accepting the unexpected alliance, Nozomu agrees to join while his new teammates offer their casual approval. Students draw their varied weapons, from spears to heavy swords, lining up for the group exercise. The classroom transitions into a battlefield as the mismatched party members prepare to test their combined strength. Instructor Henri signals the start of the exercise with an energetic shout, igniting the immediate group combat. Mars Dickens swings his massive blade with terrifying force, his aggression driving the party's opening assault. A high-speed dash follows as the entire team charges forward into the heat of the intense mock battle. Steel clashes violently in a symphony of loud metallic clangs as multiple combatants engage in close-quarters combat. Moving in a desperate blur, Nozomu executes a series of precise and high-speed maneuvers during the struggle. Sweat pours down Mars's face as he experiences the overwhelming and exhausting pressure of the group battle. Chaotic flashes of energy consume the arena, while the students fight to master their integrated combat skills. Nozomu skillfully maneuvers through a barrage of wind blades, his eyes locked on the casting opponent. Next, a high-ranking student manifests a wind longsword, commanding the element to strike with magical force. Meanwhile, the coordinated enemy team executes a tactical plan, aiming to eliminate their opponents one by one. As Mars Dickens counters a heavy swing, shouting in triumph while catching the enemy off guard. Suddenly moving in a high-speed blur, Nozomu executes an evasive dash to find a potential opening. Thereafter, a sudden magical explosion shatters the ground nearby, indicating the arrival of high-level offensive spells. Consequently, Mars takes a direct hit from an unexpected fireball, sending him reeling across the arena floor. While Nozomu notices the magical sneak attack, he realizes the opponents are utilizing long-range spells. Subsequently, enemy mages mock Nozomu, cruelly labeling him useless bait as they coordinate their next barrage. Panting heavily, the two mismatched partners prepare to regroup amidst the relentless and high-speed mock battle. Then Nozomu lunges forward with explosive speed, delivering a powerful strike that resonates through the facility. Whereas steel rings out repeatedly as Nozomu deflects a flurry of strikes coming from multiple combatants. Despite his efforts, he is forced onto the absolute defensive, struggling to maintain his footing. Furthermore, violent explosions erupt around Nozomu while he fends off a dangerous combination of weapons. Realizing that even a single second of distraction would lead to defeat, he sharpens his focus. As concentration reaches its peak, he meticulously tracks the complex movements of his many academy rivals, suddenly unleashing a massive shockwave. His wide-range slash sends several startled opponents flying backward. Moments later, a thick cloud of dust consumes the battlefield, leaving the enemy archer completely shocked. Nozomu charges through the smoke toward the vulnerable long-range attackers while dodging a final, desperate shot. Finally clashing blades once more, he shocks his arrogant foes by parrying their most powerful assault. Nozomu strikes his opponents with a sudden and overwhelming force, catching the entire group completely off guard. Then he executes a high-speed dash, moving through the formation before anyone can react to his presence. Systematically, he incapacitates multiple combatants in a single, fluid motion that leaves the arena in utter silence. Startled peers shudder while realizing they were unable to even perceive the direction of the coming assault. Mars and the other students are left bewildered by the young warrior's unprecedented and terrifying combat speed. Several fallen students crash to the ground as Nozomu stands victorious amidst the results of his strike. Scattered across the dirt, the defeated trainees struggle to process the absolute dominance they just witnessed firsthand. Nozomu reflects on his mastery of the flash step technique, which allowed him to evade every incoming attack. Mars and his companions stare in profound shock, unable to believe the hidden strength of the Academy outcast. A cold, sharp focus defines the young man's expression as he faces the judgment of his peers. His intense eyes reflect the hardened spirit of a warrior, forged through countless battles in the deep forest. Sensing his dangerous aura, the surrounding students instinctively back away from the man they once despised. Mars contemplates the sudden change in Nozomu, noticing a significant shift in his once timid and broken attitude. The team members remain visibly shaken, struggling to reconcile Nozomu's low rank with his current display. Walking away from the training field, the sound of steady footsteps marks the end of a momentous session. Gossip spreads among the students who realize that the boy they labeled a failure has fundamentally changed. Mars wonders where Nozomu could have possibly acquired such high-level and refined combat experience in secret. Stepping firmly onto the cobblestones, the rival remains lost in thought about the mystery surrounding the boy. He correctly concludes that Nozomu must have been training alone in the wilderness to achieve this power. Determined to find the truth, he begins his pursuit as Nozomu continues his solitary path through the city. Nozomu continues walking through the cobblestone streets, his mind occupied by the sensation of being followed. Although he feels no immediate malice, the persistent feeling of being watched makes him wary. Navigating through the dense city crowd, he suspects something nefarious and plans to lose his tail in the forest. A sudden worry crosses his mind as he wonders if his secret Dragon Slayer status has finally been exposed. Determined to protect his master's location, He decides to draw out whoever is trailing him before reaching the cabin. He ducks past a wooden cart in a narrow alleyway, intentionally leading his follower away from populated areas. Passing through a quiet courtyard, he maintains his pace while keeping his senses sharp for any movement behind him. Nozomu eventually reaches the outskirts of the residential district, the setting sun casting long shadows across the stone walls. The vast training grounds near the outer wall offer the perfect isolated location for an unavoidable confrontation. Mars Dickens reveals his presence, his sharp eyes fixed intently on the student he once looked down upon. Nozomu stops and turns to face his pursuer in the open field, standing tall before the massive stone walls. With a cold and focused expression, he prepares to address the man who has been following him through the city. Mars approaches with a serious demeanor, mentioning a specific issue he needs to settle for himself right now. Nozomu demands to know the purpose of the pursuit, asking Mars what he truly hopes to achieve by following him. Confused by the ambiguous response, Nozomu repeats the rival's words while his hand moves closer to his hilt. The young swordsman's gaze hardens as he realizes that a physical explanation is the only thing Mars will accept. Without warning, the air shatters with a sudden dash as the two warriors explode into high-speed motion. Mars lunges forward with a devastating downward swing, putting the full weight of his great sword into the opening strike. Nozomu immediately draws his katana with a sharp metallic ring, his reflexes honed by Master Shino's brutal training sessions. Steel meets steel with a deafening clang as the two rivals begin an intense and long overdue duel. Nozomu skids backward across the grass while a frustrated Mars demands to know exactly what he is doing. Meanwhile, Mars clarifies his intentions, stating he only wants the young swordsman to answer a few specific questions. Infuriated by the contradiction, Nozomu shouts back, questioning why Mars drew his lethal weapon for mere conversation, yet he maintains a cold and unwavering focus, his eyes narrowing as he prepares for the next exchange. Panting from the physical exertion, Nozomu steadies his breathing and prepares to resume the intense confrontation. Then they clash violently. Nozomu executes a perfect counterswing, demonstrating how master-level strikes originate from the center of the waist. Swiftly he ducks. Both combatants reposition. Suddenly, massive energy erupts. Mars staggers backward. Immediately, Nozomu leaps high. His hands tighten around the hilt, focusing every ounce of internal energy into the upcoming and decisive blow. Air whistles loudly. Wind blast explodes. Nozomu prepares to weather the storm, noting the strong possibility of being blown away by the concentrated energy. He slides away. A heavy standoff follows as the two fighters pause to catch their much-needed and heavy breath. Mars grits his teeth, realizing that despite his physical superiority, he cannot land a single meaningful hit. Finally, the bully acknowledges Nozomu's superior technique, fearing that he may be the one defeated in the end. Nozomu reflects on the invisible chains of his suppression, determined to understand how to finally become much stronger. His eyes burn with a fierce intensity, signaling a desire to push past his current and frustrating limits. Focusing inward, the young swordsman centers his heart while contemplating the arduous path to achieving true power. A quiet wind passes by as he remains lost in thought, his profile silhouetted against the bright sky. Suddenly he senses a presence nearby, his attention snapping toward a subtle movement in the surrounding environment. Mars Dickens listens as Nozomu sadly explains that his mysterious and dedicated master is already long gone. Curious about his rival's sudden growth, Mars inquires about the specific nature of the training he underwent. Nozomu recounts his grueling regimen involving lethal mock battles, outrunning wild forest beasts, and swinging heavy practice swords. He offers a wary but genuine smile, admitting that his past training was indeed quite lively and difficult. Mars credits Nozomu's uncanny sword skills and sharp judgment to the incredible effectiveness of that secret training. With a solemn gaze, the boy confirms that every skill he possesses was forged through his master's guidance. He describes the importance of natural positioning and strategic movement, learned from fighting dangerous packs of monsters. Shifting the tone, Nozomu sharply asks why Mars was following him through the city streets earlier today. Mars looks incredibly flustered and sweaty, unable to provide a logical reason for his sudden and aggressive attack. The once arrogant bully stammers over his words, his face flushing with embarrassment under Nozomu's direct questioning. Nozomu tilts his head in confusion, while his companion continues to struggle with his own pride and words. Finally snapping, Mars attempts to shout his true feelings before being interrupted by a loud, high-pitched scream. A sudden and energetic shout for Big Brother catches both young men completely off guard in the clearing. A young girl carrying groceries marches forward, furiously demanding to know why Mars brought a stranger here. She accuses her brother of shaking people down, having followed him after noticing his unusually suspicious facial expression. Ina continues her relentless scolding, reminding Mars how many times she and their grandmother had to apologize for him. Nozomu remains speechless while Ina lists his neighbor's complaints, labeling Mars as a truly difficult person to handle. She reveals increasingly embarrassing childhood secrets, from bedwetting to horse riding failures, while Nozomu feels awkward for his rival. Bowing her head, Ina sincerely apologizes for her stupid brother's behavior. While Nozomu tells her not to worry, the energetic girl introduces herself as Ina Dickens, flashing a bright and friendly smile toward her brother's classmate. Blushing slightly, Nozomu offers his own name in return, relieved by the sudden shift in the atmosphere's tension. Ina explains their family runs an inn with a pub, offering a free dinner to settle the debt. Nozomu attempts to decline the generous offer, but Ina becomes fired up and refuses to take no for an answer. Relenting, he follows her to the Bullhead Inn, a large and welcoming timber frame building in the city. Entering the establishment, Ina announces their arrival to the innkeeper, Hannah, while Mars remains visibly dejected and annoyed. Hannah offers another apology for their stupid boy's actions, as Ina introduces the guest she rescued from Mars. The kind innkeeper directs Nozomu to a quiet table by the window. Promising a meal that will satisfy him, Mars attempts to protest, but Hannah drags him toward the kitchen by the ear while he yelps in pain. Watching the chaotic family dynamic unfold, Nozomu observes the pair disappear behind the counter toward the back rooms. A loud smack resonates from the kitchen area, causing the young swordsman to offer a nervous and awkward smile. Ina serves him a glass of water while Nozomu wonders if Mars was actually struck with a heavy pan. Hannah returns with a sizzling platter of fresh food, placing it before her guest with a proud expression. The burrow rabbit steak looks absolutely incredible, and Nozomu prepares to dig in while being offered unlimited seconds. Native to the local forests, these burrowing creatures are highly prized as a delicious and common source of meat. Finally finishing every last bite, Nozomu leans back in complete satisfaction and thanks his host for the amazing feast. Hannah tells Ina to assist the busy kitchen staff, while Nozomu finishes his delicious and filling meal. Turning her attention back to their guest, Hannah confirms the young man's name is indeed Nozomu. She asks if it is all right to inquire about something personal, immediately piquing the boy's curiosity. Directly, she asks for his honest opinion regarding her foster children, the aggressive Mars and diligent Ina. Nozomu considers his answer carefully while the seasoned innkeeper watches him with her wise and knowing eyes. He praises Ina's diligence, but admits Mars remains a difficult and unfriendly mystery to him for now. Hannah notes a subtle shift in Mars' attitude recently. Despite his usual aggressive and stubborn outward demeanor, she observes that the young warrior has been acting quite strangely since their last intense encounter. Relieved, she expresses her genuine happiness that the lonely boy finally found someone he wants as a friend. Crucially, she reveals that Mars didn't complain even once about Nozomu visiting their private family home today. She believes Mars truly wants friendship, but simply lacks the social skills to offer a proper apology. Historically, Mars has never brought any of his Academy followers to this private and sacred family sanctuary. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Mars' foster father scolds him for his recent behavior and lack of focus. The man berates the young warrior for acting out and causing unnecessary trouble for everyone around him. Judging by his son's defensive reaction, the man asks if Nozomu is the cause of this change. Startled, Mars blushes deeply while his father mocks the likelihood of his embarrassing defeat in mock battle. The foster parent maintains a stern expression, waiting for an honest explanation from the clearly frustrated boy. He reminds Mars of their long history together, urging him to speak his true heart without hesitation. Exploding in a fit of sudden rage, Mars denies that his frustration stems solely from losing the duel. Gritting his teeth, Mars confesses he desperately wants to know the secret behind Nozomu's incredible new strength. Hana directs Ina to the kitchen while Nozomu finishes his meal, thanking his host for the generous spread. Mars admits he cannot ask Nozomu for his secrets now, believing the boy must absolutely despise him. His father mocks his sulking nature, pointing out that Mars hasn't changed at all despite attending the academy. Mars grunts in annoyance, his pride wounded by his father's blunt but accurate assessment of his character. Looking on, the foster father reflects on how Mars has never crossed lines but remains emotionally closed off. The weight of his mother's death and father's abandonment still casts a long shadow over the young boy's heart. He silently credits Nozomu for finally getting his stubborn foster son to open up to someone his own age. Nozomu ponders the situation, realizing that Mars has never brought a classmate home to his family in before. The family bids Nozomu farewell, while his father commands Mars to properly apologize for his previous rude behavior. The two rivals walk through the quiet cobblestone streets together, the evening chatter of the city surrounding them. Mars remains silent and visibly uncomfortable, struggling to find the right words to address the man beside him. Surprisingly, Nozomu offers a sincere apology first, expressing regret for everything that has happened between them until now. Stunned by the unexpected kindness, Mars scratches his neck while Nozomu looks back at him with genuine eyes. This rare invitation home reveals a side of Mars that remains completely hidden within the Academy's competitive walls. Nozomu decides to let the past go, recognizing that Mars is a person who truly understands others' pain. Mars looks at him in shock, eventually offering a small word of thanks for the boy's surprising forgiveness. Nozomu considers Ina's intense lecture, wondering what kind of person he would be to still hold blame. Suddenly, the young swordsman bursts into laughter, unable to contain his amusement at the absurdity of the day. Infuriated and embarrassed, Mars screams for him to forget everything immediately, while Nozomu continues to chuckle playfully. Their shouting echoes across the rooftops under the moonlight, marking the start of a strange and new friendship. Enri-sensei expresses pure joy and relief that Nozomu and Mars have finally become friends. Meanwhile, the two boys enjoy a casual meal together, sharing a rare moment of peace. While the school doctor observes the teacher's typical overreaction with a faint, knowing sigh. Consequently, the energetic instructor enthusiastically pulls her two students closer to celebrate their newfound bond. As Nozomu reflects on how his relationship with Mars has fundamentally shifted in recent days, furthermore, the classroom environment has changed significantly since the bullying lackeys finally disappeared from sight. During their practical training sessions, the pair begins spending much more time working alongside each other. Notably, Enri-sensei seems far more excited than usual about the positive turn in class dynamics. Subsequently, the doctor points out the teacher's growing personal interest in both Nozomu and Mars lately, which causes Mars to react with a look of genuine surprise and sudden confusion. Thereafter, the teacher reminds him of his past behavior to highlight how much he has improved. Flashing a heartwarming smile, she praises Mars for reflecting on his actions and making sincere amends. While Mars blushes from the unexpected praise, Nozomu realizes just how sharp their teacher truly is. Suddenly, the group's quiet meal is interrupted when the prestigious Iris Dina arrives with an injured patient. The Midnight Princess maintains a serious and focused gaze as she enters the infirmary area. Recognizing the newcomer immediately, Nozomu stares in silent amazement at her sudden and imposing presence. A heavy silence falls over the room as the two elite students lock eyes once again. Then Iristina offers a gentle and sincere greeting, expressing her pleasure at seeing Nozomu there. However, the atmosphere shatters with an ominous cracking sound, startling everyone present in the facility. Finally, Nozomu struggles to find words while Mars watches the unfolding drama with visible and mounting annoyance. Mars and Ina question Nozomu about his connection to the Midnight Princess. While he nervously admits making her mad, he recalls walking away from her previously, questioning if that single act warrants her current level of intense aggression. Meanwhile, Iris reflects on their long-awaited reunion, despite the panic she clearly caused the young and stunned swordsman. Turning her attention to the task at hand, Iris apologizes as she brings a fellow student in for treatment. The room watches intently as Nozomu observes the high-ranking students gathered together within the Academy's busy infirmary walls. Dr. Norn examines the severe injury, concluding that a magic spell likely exploded during a rigorous, uncontrolled training session. She carefully inspects the burned hand, noting the extensive damage caused by the sudden and violent discharge of magic. Fortunately, the doctor confirms that neither the muscle nor bone was damaged, despite the significant amount of blood lost. Iris activates her restoration magic to heal the student, advising her to return if any lingering symptoms persist later. Nozomu remains silent, deeply impressed by the display of advanced magical healing performed by the talented Midnight Princess herself. A moment of realization strikes Nozomu as he blinks, processing the strange social dynamics unfolding right before his eyes. Thelma hides timidly behind her friend, while Nozomu offers a gentle and slightly awkward smile to ease the tension. Mars glares with murderous intensity, his face twisted in rage as he reacts to the presence of the elites. Trying to maintain peace, Nozomu encourages his hot-headed companion to calm down, despite the obvious and growing social friction. Thelma whimpers softly, burying her face in her hands as she struggles with her extreme shyness and mounting anxiety. Fury boils within Mars as he internally fumes over being outranked by someone he once considered a total weakling. Tears stream down Thelma's face as she decides that the aggressive Mars is far more terrifying than any monster. Following the instructor's orders, the doctor suggests the injured student take a much-needed break from all further training. Iris offers her sincere thanks to the staff for their assistance before the group prepares to finally depart. Nozomu watches them leave, still stunned that the legendary Iristina Sama would personally escort a regular student for medical treatment. Nozomu blushes while humbly dismissing Iris's gratitude, claiming his presence was a mere coincidence during the medical emergency. Sensing a rare opportunity, Iris leans in close to ask the young swordsman a private and potentially significant question. Taken aback by the sudden request, Nozomu looks around the crowded infirmary while questioning if this is appropriate. Iris shyly tucks her hair behind her ear, admitting she would much rather speak with him in absolute private. Overheard by Enri-sensei, the teacher playfully suggests using the nearby storage room to provide the pair some solitude. Moving into the secluded storage area, Nozomu initiates a sincere apology for his previous behavior during their first encounter. He mentions their lunch with Somia, while a nearby magic lamp illuminates the shelves of the quiet room. Iris offers a gentle smile as Nozomu frantically insists that he is actually the one who should apologize. A shadow of lingering sadness crosses Nozomu's face while he contemplates his own complicated and widely misunderstood reputation. Blushing intensely, Tima steps forward to offer her own sincere apology for her previously cold and guarded behavior. She expresses deep regret for her terrible treatment of him, remembering how he saved her in the forest. Iris explains that Tima is normally uncomfortable around men and was particularly on guard due to the rumors. Offering a bright and forgiving smile, Nozomu assures her that everything is all right since she apologized so sincerely. He acknowledges that the malicious rumors made her previous reaction understandable, though his gaze remains heavy with regret. Blurred memories of his former friends and the life he lost flicker through his mind like a ghost. Closing his eyes in pained reflection, he realizes that looking away from his past only worsens his present. Nozomu grips his uniform tightly while internally admitting that he is still running away from his own trauma. Trying to maintain his composure, he dismisses the concerns of the girls and suggests they head back out. Iris watches him with a piercing and thoughtful gaze, sensing the heavy burden he continues to carry alone. Rejoining the others, Nozomu introduces his abrasive classmate Mars Dickens and their energetic teacher, Enri-sensei, to the group. Mars huffs in annoyance while Iristina and Tima observe the group's strange and increasingly tense social dynamics. Noting his rough disposition, Iristina speaks calmly while Nozomu attempts to keep the volatile situation under control. Consequently, Mars glares with murderous intent, his frustration boiling over as Nozomu desperately tries to calm him down. Meanwhile, Tima whimpers in terror, hiding from the aggressive warrior whose abrasive personality creates a heavy, suffocating atmosphere. A sudden thump resonates through the room as Mars shifts his weight, his presence dominating the entire quiet infirmary. Iristina watches him from a distance, analyzing the behavior of the boy who has finally befriended the academy outcast. Shifting the subject, she reminds Nozomu that Somia's birthday is approaching, bringing back memories of their previous secret encounter. Although she invited her classmates, the noble girl emphasizes that her sister specifically requested Nozomu's presence as well. However, Nozomu hesitates, questioning if someone of his low status belongs at a gathering for the prestigious Franchild family. Reassuring him, Iristina explains that only close friends are invited, affirming his place among those her sister truly values. While Mars remains brooding by the window, the group waits for Nozomu to finally accept the unexpected royal invitation. Flashing a beautiful smile, Iristina guarantees that Somia will be absolutely ecstatic to see her favorite hero once again. Thereafter, she turns her attention toward Mars, inquiring if he also intends to join the upcoming family celebration. Startled by the sudden question, Mars reacts with a shocked shout while his face turns a deep, embarrassed red. Tima recoils from the loud noise, her eyes wide with panic at the chaotic energy currently filling the small room. Nozomu watches the exchange with a sweat-dropped face, asking if his friend is truly sure about his defensive stance. Though his companions find the invitation natural, Mars stubbornly insists he has never met the birthday girl before today. Bluntly, he declares that he is simply not the type of person who attends refined and high-class noble parties. Iristina smiles knowingly, mentioning that she has heard several intriguing rumors regarding the troublesome reputation of Mars Dickens. She concludes that despite their brief meeting, he certainly seems like the type to cause a lot of trouble. Iristina analyzes their reputations, contrasting Nozomu's perceived uselessness with Mars's status as a violent academy thug. Mars maintains a cold and piercing glare, clearly agitated by the noble girl's blunt and deductive reasoning. Nozomu sweats under the pressure of the conversation, his eyes reflecting the weight of his public image. Calling him a lonely stray dog, Iristina claims Mars is remarkably easy to read despite his aggressive facade. Flushed with anger, Mars snaps back at the Midnight Princess for her constant and irritatingly accurate observations. Iristina justifies her behavior as a necessary social skill for someone in her high-ranking and prestigious position. Turning away with a dismissive click of his tongue, Mars tells Nozomu he can decline the invitation. The noble girl encourages Nozomu to look forward to the exquisite food she will provide as host. Iristina and Tima depart together, leaving the two boys alone in the silence of the school infirmary. Mars reacts with an explosive shout when Nozomu asks if he truly intends to skip the party. Nozomu observes that Mars was staring daggers at Tima, highlighting the lingering tension between different ranks. Mars explains his intense hatred for strong people who act timid, finding such behavior utterly insufferable and fake. The Academy doctor notes that some fear those with incredible power, acknowledging the terrifying magnitude of Tima's magic. A somber thought about the unknown past lingers as Tima walks away, her expression hidden from her peers. Silence falls over Mars as he contemplates the heavy words spoken about power and the weight of history. Nozomu reflects on the burden of possessing power that is simply too strong for one to control easily. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes within his soul as the metaphorical chains of his suppression begin to creak. He stands alone amidst a scarred landscape, witnessing the aftermath of a violent discharge of internal spirit energy. Evening falls over the rooftops of Alcazam, casting long shadows across the peaceful and quiet residential district. Somia smiles brightly while holding Shadow, her thoughts fixed on the special bracelet and her upcoming birthday party. Iristina mentions how happy Somia was to receive the special bracelet from her beloved older sister. Nozomu listens in silence, his eyes reflecting a mixture of deep contemplation and lingering personal sadness. He gazes at the morning sky, wondering if he possesses enough time to complete his secret task. Deep within the forest, the young swordsman returns to his master's secluded and quiet wooden cabin. Noticing a small bell, Nozomu decides to use his limited resources to create a meaningful birthday gift. A gentle smile crosses his face as he holds the tiny object, envisioning the recipient's eventual joy. He begins crafting, apologizing to his absent master while salvaging brass from an old and worn-out belt. Utilizing various tools and molten metal, the dedicated student meticulously works on refining his handmade jewelry piece. Nozomu examines the finished bell pendant, which rings softly as he tests the results of his labor. Despite his efforts, he remains unsure of the quality, wondering if his simple creation is good enough. Looking dejected, he concludes that his first attempt at crafting wasn't quite as successful as he hoped. Several days pass before Nozomu and Mars finally arrive at their destination under a clear evening sky. They stand before the massive and imposing iron gates leading into the prestigious Franchild family's grand estate. Nozomu stretches his arms to ease his nerves, while the memories of his forest training linger nearby. Ina warns her brother not to do anything weird as they gaze at the absolutely massive mansion. Mars questions why his sister is present, pointing out that she was never formally invited to this party. A flashback reveals that earlier that same day, a heated confrontation occurred at the Bull's Head Inn. Anna discovered the truth about Mars's previous treatment of Tima and was instantly consumed by righteous fury. She scolds her brother, admitting she used chi to beat him into submission to ensure an apology. Pumped with energy, the determined girl leads the two students toward the gates of the noble residence. Nozomu questions if Mars really needs his sister's help to apologize. While the hothead fumes in silence, Mars complains about his sister tagging along, while Ina insists he would only say something weird alone. A heated argument erupts between the siblings, forcing Nozomu to desperately plead for them to stay quiet. A mansion maid intervenes, asking the group to stop making such a loud ruckus before the gate. Iristina appears suddenly, identifying the boys as her personal friends and dismissing the startled maid from duty. Nozomu offers his thanks while the Midnight Princess welcomes her invited guests into the Grand Noble estate. The bickering continues as Nozomu wonders just how long the siblings intend to keep up their performance. Mars demands to know when Ina will stop making a scene in front of the high-ranking students. Formal party guests chuckle at the spectacle, causing the aggressive warrior to blush with deep, stinging embarrassment. The siblings suddenly turn their fury on Nozomu, screaming that he should have warned them about the crowd. Iristina finds the situation genuinely amusing, hiding a small giggle behind her hand as she watches them. Ina becomes visibly shy and flustered, her previous boldness vanishing upon seeing the elegant academy elites nearby. Iristina formally introduces herself to the young girl, while Nozomu watches the pleasant social interaction unfold quietly. Tima Ryan offers a warm and gentle greeting, welcoming the energetic sister to the Franz family celebration. Realization dawns on Ina as she shocks herself by meeting the legendary and powerful Academy mages personally. Ina bows in a deep apology for her brother's antics, while Mars stubbornly refuses to acknowledge his wrongdoing. The family quarrel reignites as Mars asserts his independence, while Ina demands a proper show of respect. Nozomu eventually bursts into laughter at the chaotic display, while the siblings continue their frantic and loud dispute. Tima watches in quiet amazement, noting she has never seen the composed Iris laugh with such abandon. Iristina erupts into uncontrollable joy, her vibrant laughter echoing through the garden as the group watches in shock. Iris apologizes for her sudden laughter, noting that Mars and Ina must be very close siblings. The siblings react with comical shock and embarrassment, while Nozomu watches the lighthearted interaction. Standing before the majestic Franz estate, Iris formally invites Ina to join her sister's birthday celebration. Ina hesitates, worried about her plain clothes and lack of a proper gift for such a high-class event. Mars looks away awkwardly, having tagged along just to apologize while Iris listens to their concerns. The noble host reassures them that the gathering is casual, and heartfelt wishes matter more than expensive presents. Displaying a rare side, Mars reveals they bought a gift together with his money and Ina's choices. A flashback shows Ina picking out sweets while forcibly collecting pocket money from her grumbling brother. Feeling relieved and welcome, Ina finally agrees to attend the party as long as she isn't intruding. Iristina cheerfully guides her new guest toward the mansion, ready to begin the festivities. Tima and Nozomu converse about the timing, deciding a short stay won't cause issues back at the inn. Entering the foyer, a polite maid requests that the boys relinquish their swords for the party's duration. The group reaches the grand party area, their eyes widening at the incredible scale of the room. Standing beneath a large bird statue, Iris tells them to wait as the celebration will start soon. Exquisite delicacies and refreshments are laid out across long tables adorned with elaborate silver candelabras. Servants and guards stand ready in the massive sunlit ballroom, awaiting the arrival of family and guests. Somia arrives with her classmates, her face lighting up with pure joy as she spots her sister. Abandoning all formality, the young girl sprints across the hall to leap into Irisdina's waiting arms. They share a tender, sisterly embrace while the surrounding staff members watch the reunion with gentle smiles. Radiant with happiness, Iris holds her little sister close, fully enjoying this rare moment of domestic peace. Iris formally welcomes her guests to the party, urging them to forget their duties and enjoy the night. A butler carries a tray of glasses through the room, while elegant silver candelabras illuminate the grand hall. Meanwhile, Ina is completely amazed by the quality of the gourmet meat served at the Noble Estates buffet. The group continues sampling the feast as Ina enthusiastically analyzes the ingredients to improve her own family's menu. Nozomu and Mars are visibly taken aback by the incredible variety of food piled high on their heavy plates. Another guest identifies them as full plate buddies. While the atmosphere remains surprisingly relaxed and friendly for all, Somia happily approaches Nozomu to offer her greetings while Iristina accompanies her through the crowded ballroom area. The young birthday girl radiates pure joy and excitement while personally thanking Nozomu for attending her special celebration. Subsequently, she curiously inquires about the names of Nozomu's companions as Mars and Inai watch from the background. Ina introduces herself and her brother, confirming they are attending the party by the Midnight Princess's personal invitation. Somia insists that they address her informally by her nickname, wanting to foster a much closer and friendlier bond. However, Mars makes a blunt comment that causes Ina to react with a mix of shock and intense frustration. Observing the exchange from afar, Tima expresses concern about whether the newcomers are truly enjoying the noble festivities. Iristina reassures Nozomu that their friend's lively behavior is perfectly fine and likely their natural way of interacting. She offers a tender and beautiful smile, truly happy to see her little sister finally enjoying herself so much. Furthermore, the noble girl admits that while the noise is difficult for Tima, these lively moments are quite refreshing. Nozomu finds himself lost in admiration while watching Iris's peaceful expression, his face slowly beginning to turn red. Sensing his fixed gaze, the Midnight Princess turns toward him and asks if anything is bothering him right now. Startled by the direct question, Nozomu stammers a nervous denial while struggling to hide his mounting and visible embarrassment. Finally, Iris leans in close to the flustered young man, catching him completely off guard with her sudden proximity. Iris leans in close to Nozomu, asking if he has brought a birthday present for her little sister. Nozomu confirms while blushing intensely, as Iris thanks him and suggests he hand it over much later. Meanwhile, he watches the party guests, observing how his friends struggle to adapt to the refined, noble environment. Suddenly, the young swordsman realizes he hasn't properly thanked Iris for her genuine kindness and hospitality today. Thereafter, he turns to address her directly, while Iris looks back with a curious and expectant expression. Iris explains that Somia appears unusually happy this year, simply because Nozomu and his friends decided to come. She notes that Somia is incredibly sensitive, possessing a keen eye for sensing others' true and hidden intentions. Then the noble girl recounts the tragic loss of their mother, which traditionally makes Somia's birthdays quite melancholy. However, this occasion feels completely different, and Iris credits their meeting for her sister's new and radiant joy. Nozomu listens in silence while Iris continues sharing her private thoughts about her family's difficult and painful history. Subsequently, she asks him to disregard their social differences and speak freely as friends while they remain in Alakazam. As a brief memory of their quiet time in the forest highlights the growing bond between the two students. Iris offers a warm and sincere smile, telling Nozomu that she believes he is a truly kind person. Though he humbly deflects the praise, Iris maintains her gentle gaze while appreciating his selfless and honest nature. Furthermore, she reveals that most people only offer shallow words of sympathy when hearing about her family's tragedies, whereas Nozomu stayed quiet when he found no words, showing a depth of character that she deeply admires. She acknowledges that he carefully considered his position instead of trying to fake a comfortable and easy conversation. Iris then firmly asserts that he is nothing like the scandalous person the Academy rumors portray him to be. Additionally, she suspects his continued presence at the school is driven by a lingering kindness for his friend Lisa. Speechless and blushing, Nozomu stares back as Iris admits her strong intuition regarding his true and noble heart. Iristina leans in close, placing a finger to her lips while declaring absolute confidence in her keen intuition. The Midnight Princess maintains her mysterious silence, her gaze penetrating as she observes Nozomu's startled and confused reaction. Blushing deeply, the young swordsman offers a soft, genuine smile, finally finding a moment of comfort amidst the festivities. Iristina returns a sentiment with a radiant and heartwarming expression, her eyes closed in a rare moment of peace. Suddenly, a chaotic argument between Mars and Ina erupts nearby, causing poor Somia to burst into loud, frantic tears. Domestic staff watch the sibling rivalry with amused smiles, while the atmosphere in the hall remains unexpectedly lively and loud. Nozomu and Iristina stand together on the sidelines, watching the frantic domestic dispute with a mixture of pure bewilderment. Noting the princess's summons, Nozomu resolves to intervene and stop Mars before the scene escalates any further tonight. Outside the grand estate, a mysterious figure arrives late at night, demanding an immediate audience with the master himself. A stoic maid refuses entry, explaining that the birthday celebration prevents her from announcing any uninvited visitors right now. She stands her ground firmly, citing her strict contract which prohibits discussing private family matters with any unknown third parties. The tense standoff continues at the iron gates while the distant sound of the party echoes through the dark evening. Inside, a distinguished man in formal attire adjusts his bow tie, his face hidden as he prepares for something significant. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the man commands attention, while the weary maid lets out a heavy sigh. Suddenly, a powerful force knocks the maid aside as the mysterious intruder demands passage into the high-ranking noble residence. A brilliant magic circle manifests on the ground, glowing with an intense light that illuminates the mansion's grand exterior. Hearing a suspicious noise, Nozomu turns his attention toward the entrance, while the butler mentions the ongoing birthday preparations. The main doors swing open as the head butler enters the room, his presence immediately shifting the group's lighthearted mood. Nozomu asks if the newcomer was previously in the home, but Iris Dina's expression turns cold and incredibly serious. Staring ahead with a chilling and focused gaze, the Midnight Princess firmly denies knowing the man currently entering the party. Guests murmur and whisper as the mysterious butler walks through the crowd, his presence creating immediate social unease. Lugato introduces himself, apologizing to Lady Iristina and Somiliana for his sudden and uninvited arrival at the party. Iristina demands to know his purpose, citing that entering without warning or a master's name is quite unreasonable. Lugato reveals he serves the Wajert House of the Desert Empire, bringing a message from his distant masters. Nozomu reflects on the Desert Empire, a secluded snowy country founded by ostracized races with exceptionally strong abilities. The upcoming chapter release date is announced, marking a brief transition in the unfolding and intense narrative. Fixing his gaze, Lugato declares he has come to retrieve the Soul Flame Furnace treasure lent to them. He explains the furnace captures a soul to harness its power, property originally belonging to the Wajert family. Somilia trembles as the butler claims the treasure is currently fused to her young and vulnerable soul. Shouting in alarm, Iristina demands that the man wait as she moves to protect her terrified little sister. The atmosphere shatters into chaos while the guests and staff react with sudden shock to the butler's declaration. Lugato maintains a cold, calculating expression, his focus entirely on the objective he was sent to retrieve today. An insane amount of magical energy erupts from the old butler, catching Nozomu and the others off guard. The grand hall rumbles and guests stagger under the weight of the massive magical pressure filling the room. A sudden flash of movement streaks through the air, signaling the start of a violent and high-stakes confrontation. Nozomu grits his teeth, sweating profusely while sensing the overwhelming and terrifying scale of the butler's latent magic. Iristina identifies the magic as a powerful hypnotic suggestion, designed to paralyze everyone present within the estate walls. Lugato stoically repeats his intent to remove Somiliana's soul, expressing a cold apology for his necessary and violent actions. Furious, Iristina recalls family history regarding a 300-year-old contract that her ancestors supposedly made with the Wajart. The butler explains that his family previously provided vital assistance to resolve a major Franchild family crisis long ago. Lugato reveals an ancient contract, explaining that the Soul Flame Furnace was lent to the family long ago. The butler details the agreement where magic tools were traded for immense wealth for a set period. Somia clutches her chest in fear as he identifies her family heirloom as proof of the legal binding. Mars and Tima watch in horror as Lugato describes a guardian familiar coming to reclaim the borrowed treasure. Nozomu narrows his eyes, focusing intensely on the growing threat posed by the mysterious and calm old butler. Noticing the royal family seal, Iris gasps while Lugato prepares to execute the contract's final, lethal terms now. A sudden magical shockwave ripples through the ballroom, the intense pressure causing every heart in the room to pound. Desperate to protect her sister, Iris screams for the butler to wait as she initiates a countermove. Dark energy swirls around Somia as her bracelet begins to glow with an ominous and terrifying light. A ghastly skeletal reaper manifests from the shadows, its hollow eyes fixed upon the young and frightened girl. The room is consumed by a violent surge of dark magic, signaling the arrival of the contract's deadly guardian. Lugato identifies the monstrous familiar as the manager of the treasure, come to fulfill the ancient agreement's terms. Iris quickly casts her binding chains of darkness, attempting to restrain the skeletal beast with magic-infused chains. The skeletal reaper moves with supernatural speed, its dark cloak fluttering as it effortlessly avoids the initial attack. Gritting her teeth, the Midnight Princess maintains her offensive stance, refusing to back down against the godly entity. Nozomu grunts in pain as the familiar's scythe clashes violently against his defense with a loud metallic ring. Tima prepares her own spells while Nozomu calls out to coordinate their next move against the monstrous foe. Somia finds herself trapped within the four-circle ceiling array, a complex magical cage formed from 4 elements. This ancient technique systematically binds its target, making escape nearly impossible for anyone caught within its reach. A blinding flash of energy erupts as the struggle reaches a peak, with chains rattling against the vibrant light. The ancient four-circle ceiling array activates, its intricate magic circles glowing as they tightly trap the helpless, young Somia within. Lugado praises the magnificent spells, while the ghastly, skeletal familiar looms over the captive girl bound in heavy magical chains. Looming above the shimmering array, the skeletal guardian readies its gargantuan scythe as dark energy permeates the grand ballroom hall. Tima explains the complex element circulation of the binding array, her face reflecting the intense strain of maintaining such power. Dina realizes the spell's temporary effectiveness, her sharp eyes scanning the battlefield for a way to save her trapped sister. Lugado notes that stopping the familiar won't resolve anything, while the warriors stand ready for a truly desperate struggle. With a calm gesture, the butler unleashes a concentrated magical blast from a small floating circle, accelerating the terminal confrontation. Sudden magic forces collide violently. Enchanted blades whistle through air. Iristina lunges forward to attack. Multiple daggers converge on Lugado. Lugado easily manifests a swirling magical barrier, deflecting the incoming blades as if they were nothing more than mere toys. Eerie whispers of pain and fear emanate from the skeleton, reflecting the tragic and hidden suffering of Somia's trapped soul. Iristina charges with a shout. Focused and resolute, the Midnight Princess prepares her next move, while her long hair flows gracefully amidst the magical storm. Panic rises as the girls realize Somia will be killed if their current sealing spell suddenly vanishes under the pressure. Tima recalls her childhood trauma of awakening to uncontrollable magical power, leaving her feeling completely helpless and terrified of herself. Glowing chains rattle loudly against the stone floor, while the struggle between the students and the familiar reaches its peak. Her unique ability, Symphony of the Four Scales, made her an outcast among her peers during her time at Eklos. Dark energy continues to roil across the battlefield, casting long and ominous shadows over the desperate struggle for survival. Iristina approaches the flustered Tima, gently asking for a minute of her time amidst the ongoing social gathering. Looking directly at her friend, the Midnight Princess maintains a calm and graceful demeanor while seeking a private conversation. Tima blushes intensely, her wide eyes reflecting her shock at being addressed so directly by her prestigious academy peer. Memories of the sisters' radiant smiles and shared warmth flicker through the air like a beautiful and distant dream. Iristina and Somia are described as celestial bodies driving away the shadows that once haunted Tima's lonely heart. Forging a new path, Tima ignites her inner strength, remembering how the sisters became her light during dark times. Lugado acknowledges the girl's considerable force of will, while manifesting a complex magic circle with his steady hand. A high-speed exchange erupts as Iristina charges forward, her movements synchronized with Tima's increasingly difficult and powerful spellcasting. The butler demonstrates superior control, manipulating magic swords with a separate spell while maintaining his perfect defensive stance. Trapped in a stalemate, Tima realizes she cannot move without breaking the vital sealing spell currently holding the familiar. The Grand Hall is suddenly consumed by a blinding discharge of magical energy, signalizing the battle's rapid and violent escalation. Maintaining his cold and analytical focus, Lugado prepares his next move while observing the persistent resistance of the students. Eerie voices of pain and fear echo from the familiar, reflecting Somia's suffering while the battle continues raging on. Mars lunges forward to protect Tima, telling her to focus on the spell while he handles the butler alone. Stealing her resolve, the young mage offers her thanks and prepares to complete her part of the desperate plan. Nozomu stands paralyzed by his ability suppression, lamenting his perceived uselessness without a weapon to join the fray. High-ranking magic weapons clatter against the floor as Lugado systematically disarms the defenders with effortless and terrifying precision. Mars screams for Nozomu to move, ordering him to retrieve their confiscated swords from the estate's secure storage room. Reacting instantly, Iristina throws a key toward Nozomu while maintaining her focus on the dangerous and powerful butler. Nozomu catches the object mid-sprint, heading toward the storage room to secure the weapons needed for their final stand. The complex sealing array tightens its grip, ensuring the target remains completely trapped within its magical boundary. Lugado claps in appreciation of the magnificent spells while Somia trembles. Bound helplessly by glowing magical chains, the skeletal familiar looms over the captured girl, brandishing its massive scythe with a truly terrifying presence. Tima explains that each element circulates to strengthen the binding array, her face reflecting the immense strain. Iristina maintains her focused stance, realizing the restraint on the formidable familiar is only a temporary measure. Lugato stoically observes the battlefield, declaring that merely stopping the familiar will fail to resolve anything. With a sudden and sharp motion, the butler manifests a magic circle to launch a high-speed strike. A violent magical impact forces a scream from the students as they struggle to maintain their positions. A sword spins through the void, its shimmering steel caught in the middle of a terminal discharge. Moving with high-speed grace, Iristina maneuvers through the arena to avoid the butler's relentless magical assault. The enchanted blade streaks through the air, a blur of motion amidst the chaotic and high-stakes duel. Subsequently, Lugato effortlessly deflects the flying projectile with a barrier, his movements remaining perfectly calm and calculated. Meanwhile, heartbreaking pleas of fear and pain echo from the familiar, revealing Somia's inner agony during the struggle. Then Iristina charges forward with incredible speed, determined to find any opening against the overwhelmingly powerful old butler. The Midnight Princess narrows her gaze, channeling her inner strength to overcome the massive pressure filling the room. Panic rises as the girls realize Somia faces certain death if their current sealing spell suddenly collapses now. Tima recalls the terrifying helplessness of her childhood, when she first awakened to magic she could not handle. Heavy chains rattle against the floor as the skeletal guardian exerts its dark and crushing influence over Somia. Cursed by her abnormal level of magic, Tima reflects on how her unique abilities led to social isolation. Finally, a devastating blast shatters the battlefield, as desperate screams echo through the blinding white light. Nozomu dashes away, promising to return quickly with the necessary weapons for his struggling companions. Meanwhile, Tima collapses to her knees while Iristina watches her friend's failing strength with deep concern. The skeletal reaper prepares to swing its lethal scythe while the defenders struggle to maintain their footing. Dark flames flicker within the reaper's eye sockets as it looms over its young and defenseless prey. Furthermore, Somia remains paralyzed by fear, her body still bound by the glowing magical chains of the array. Lugato manipulates several floating magic swords, his mastery over weaponry making him an insurmountable and deadly opponent. Iristina dashes forward fast. Thereafter, the noble girl skids across the floor, narrowly avoiding a direct hit from the Reaper's long-range assault. Lugato maintains a stoic expression while Iristina grits her teeth, feeling the pressure of the butler's superior magic. High above Somia, the skeletal familiar raises its scythe for a finishing blow as the array flickers. Despair fills the young girl's eyes while she whimpers in terror under the shadow of the approaching blade. Iristina screams her sister's name, her face contorted with desperation as she tries to break the barrier. Reaper's scythe descends quickly. At the same time, Lugato's skeletal hand reaches out to finalize the retrieval process, while the atmosphere turns heavy. Impact shatters stone pillar. The butler remains unmoved by the surrounding destruction, his focus fixed solely on fulfilling the ancient family contract. Nozomu strikes the Reaper. In a blinding flash, Somia's special bracelet is struck with immense force and finally shatters into several pieces. Stunned by the unexpected turn of events, Iristina watches the debris of the heirloom scatter into the air. Finally, the magical chains binding Somia's arm dissolve as the contract source is finally and completely destroyed. Nozomu draws his katana, his resolve hardening as he prepares to face the formidable butler head-on. Lugato watches with cold indifference, his monocle glinting under the harsh, magical light of the grand ballroom. Iristina blinks back tears of frustration, her eyes reflecting the desperate situation surrounding her trapped little sister. The skeletal familiar releases a bone-chilling roar, its hollow frame vibrating with malevolent and dark spiritual energy. A gargantuan black blade manifests in the center of the room, overshadowing the students during the chaotic struggle. Lugato expresses genuine surprise that his powerful familiar was actually defeated by mere sword strokes from a student. Nozomu maintains a low and lethal stance, his hands steady on the hilt of his unique katana. Tima lies battered on the floor, her magical reserves depleted after the intense and one-sided magical exchange. Mars offers a weak laugh from the ground, despite his injuries, acknowledging Nozomu's timely and powerful arrival. A heavy thump echoes through the hall as someone steps forward, the sound cutting through the heavy silence. Nozomu offers a quiet apology for his lateness while Mars grumbles back. Despite being clearly relieved by his presence, both Mars and Tima remain incapacitated on the floor, leaving Nozomu alone to face the insurmountable old butler. Struggling to move, Mars realizes they are currently in no condition to continue fighting against such overwhelming odds. Nozomu watches in silent horror as the fragments of the special bracelet scatter across the floor like dust. His eyes widen in shock while witnessing the complete destruction of the family heirloom he tried so hard to protect. Dark energy begins to leak from the shattered remains, creating an ominous and swirling vortex of pure magical power. Lugato explains that the familiar's sole purpose is fulfilling the contract, regardless of the physical cost to others. A sinister black orb manifests in the air, while the butler claims he can revive the familiar endlessly. Nozomu's face hardens with a new fierce determination as he prepares to defy the butler's cruel and ancient contract. Lugato's lips pull into a thin line, coldly confirming his absolute resolve to finally claim the young girl's soul. Nozomu focuses his gaze, determined to fulfill his master's orders despite not knowing the ancient family history. Whereas Iristina argues that the contract only mentions returning the furnace, never taking a child's innocent soul. Meanwhile, Lugato coldly admits he just discovered the fusion. Yet his master remains completely uninterested in legalities. Consequently, Nozomu prepares for a confrontation. Realizing that the butler's terms allow for no peaceful negotiation today, subsequently, Lugato explains that since the soul and furnace are fused, separation is no longer physically possible. But Iristina screams that none of that matters, refusing to accept the annulment of her sister's life. Thereafter, she lunges forward with her sword, vowing to protect Somia's life at any and all costs. While Lugato stands his ground, his powerful and dark aura intensifying as he prepares to meet the assault, then Iristina asks Nozomu about the remaining uses of his technique, acknowledging her own limits in this battle. As she admits she is no match for him alone, requesting his assistance to destroy the physical contract. Following her lead, Nozomu steals his resolve while the two prepare to engage their formidable and S-ranked opponent. Iristina adopts a fierce combat stance, her eyes fixed on the man who threatens her family's safety. Clenching his sword hilt, Nozomu acknowledges that they have absolutely no choice but to fight for survival. Lugato declares that even his emperor must abide by the results of a trial of raw physical strength. Challenging them, the butler demands they prove their superiority by showing him they are truly stronger than he. The Grand Hall descends into further chaos as Lugato unleashes his power, commanding the duel to finally begin. Iristina dashes through the room while Lugato manifests a series of magical barriers to intercept her coming strike. Moving in a blur, the noble girl continues her high-speed approach toward the calm and watchful old butler. A violent impact shatters the floor as Nozomu also joins the fray, his speed matching her own pace. Finally, a barrage of energy beams rains down, forcing the young warriors to navigate a truly lethal environment. Nozomu clashes blades with Lugato, the metallic ring of their weapons echoing throughout the grand ballroom area, whereas the high-speed duel continues with Nozomu swinging his katana, while the butler perfectly parries every blow. Meanwhile, Lugato maintains a cold and focused gaze, analyzing the young warrior's every move during the struggle. Noting an instability in his own movements, Nozomu decides to risk a more aggressive approach to survive. Subsequently, Lugato unleashes a powerful magical shockwave that forces his opponent to quickly dash away for cover. Grounding himself with a firm step, the young swordsman readies his body for the next intense exchange. Thereafter, another violent collision erupts between them, sending shockwaves across the battlefield while debris flies everywhere. Lugato expresses genuine awe at Nozomu's mastered techniques, surprised by such refined skill from an academy student. As Nozomu activates his body-strengthening ability, realizing that the massive gap in their skill is slowly disappearing, suddenly a massive vortex of dark energy erupts, forcing the young man to narrowly evade the butler's trap. Skidding across the floor, he desperately wonders just how many different types of magic spells Lugato possesses. Further complicating the fight, the butler manifests several glowing magic circles to launch a new coordinated assault. Meanwhile, Iristina lunges forward with a fierce cry, determined to prevent the butler from harming her friends further. Lugato acknowledges Nozomu's sharp instincts but claims his current cheat techniques remain entirely insufficient for this battle. Steel rings out again as their blades meet with an explosive force, rattling the very foundations of the room. A flurry of metallic clangs follows as the combatants trade relentless and high-speed strikes across the Grand Hall. Preparing his next move, Nozomu watches as Lugato manifests a defensive magic circle with a calm, practiced hand. Then a high-speed strike whistles through the air, demonstrating the terrifying and lethal speed of the old butler. Lugato effortlessly shatters the surrounding stone structures with a single powerful swipe, showcasing his truly overwhelming magical strength. Finally, a magic circle cracks under the intense pressure of their collision as the battle reaches a terminal peak. Nozomu lunges into the air with a forceful dash, his movement creating a powerful shockwave. Letting out a primal roar, he puts his entire spirit into the next decisive sword strike. Simultaneously, Iristina releases a fierce battle cry, her resolve echoing through the grand hall. Steel clashes violently as the two students coordinate their assault against the insurmountable old butler. Gritting their teeth in pain, they struggle against Lugato's overwhelming and inhuman physical strength. Blades ring out repeatedly in a high-speed dance of lethal intent and masterclass skill. Lugato retaliates with multiple magical explosions, systematically dismantling the surrounding ballroom terrain. Battered and panting, the young warriors regroup amidst the thick smoke and rising debris. Nozomu asks Iristina how many more full-strength attacks she can manage before reaching her limit. Silence falls momentarily as he focuses his gaze, analyzing their rapidly dwindling chances of victory. Speed lines blur the environment, reflecting the high-stakes tension of the terminal confrontation. Iristina worries that even her slightest lip movements will be read by the watchful opponent. Nozomu looks toward his companion, his expression a mixture of deep concern and growing desperation. Blushing and sweating, the noble girl struggles to maintain her composure under the intense pressure. A look of fierce determination returns to Nozomu's face as he prepares a final gamble. Iristina's eyes widen with a mixture of hope and fear while she watches her partner. Centering his heart, the young swordsman readies his body for a technique that defies logic. Iris maintains her combat stance, her sharp eyes scanning for any potential tactical opening. Acknowledging the extreme risk, they both commit to a final, desperate gamble to win. Swirling magical currents gather around Iristina as she prepares to unleash her ultimate power. Nozomu struggles with the lack of teamwork experience between him and Iristina during the intense struggle. Lugato mocks their brute force approach, claiming it is impossible to break through his impenetrable magical defense. Meanwhile, Iristina prepares a mid-level abyss javelin spell. Despite the immense mental burden of her rapid casting, Nozomu lunges forward with a desperate slash, knowing their current strategy is a dangerously bad bet. Consequently, a massive explosion shatters the Grand Hall's tranquility, while the butler stands perfectly calm amidst the destruction. Lugato points a finger with cold precision, noting that the heroes unleashed their spell far too early. Manifesting multiple magic circles, the butler criticizes their lack of coordination and poor timing during the duel. The young swordsman realizes Lugato possesses a versatile and refined fighting style that feels strangely familiar. Furthermore, Nozomu observes that the butler is a powerful magic fighter, capable of unleashing diverse spells and physical attacks. Violent impacts continue to tear the battlefield apart, sending jagged shards of stone flying through the air. Gritting her teeth, Iristina invokes the moonlight eclipse for one final, desperate attempt to turn the tide. The noble girl charges with a fierce battle cry, while Nozomu watches her movements with absolute focus. Moving in a high-speed blur, Iristina prepares her final strike as the atmosphere reaches a terminal peak. Suddenly, a look of pure, unadulterated shock crosses the girl's face as the situation takes a turn. Nozomu's eyes widen in terror, his face drenched in sweat while he witnesses an unexpected and terrifying development. The duo finds themselves standing amidst a massive crater, searching for their elusive and overwhelmingly powerful opponent. A sudden, violent force sends Iristina flying through the air, her scream echoing through the ruined hall. Chaos erupts as the battle enters a new and even more dangerous phase for the battered students. Nozomu stares upward in paralyzed shock, his breath hitching as a new threat manifests from the shadows. Finally, a monstrous, bat-like creature with glowing eyes descends upon them, leading the boy to suspect a vampire. Magical circles suddenly manifest and cast heavy chains throughout the room, signaling a shift in the desperate battle. Nozomu and Iristina find themselves instantly ensnared, struggling in vain against the cold iron binding their broken bodies. Swirling shadows merge into a swarm of bats while the mithril rapier floats ominously before the mysterious butler. Reforming from the darkness, the butler admits the previous light attack nearly reached his true and hidden form. He examines the mithril blade, noting that its purification effect is a lethal threat even to his immortal race. Iristina watches from the ground, recognizing that imbuing the metal with magic creates a weapon against supernatural beings. Nozomu listens with mounting dread as the vampire describes his kind's superhuman strength and incredibly long, ancient lifespans. With a sharp metallic clang, the sword hits the floor while the butler discusses his distinct and red-eyed lineage. Stepping forward with calculated precision, he recalls the legends of vampires that have haunted every corner of the world. The immortal explains how his race used enthralling powers to seduce royalty and bring entire nations to absolute ruin. Bound and defenseless, Iristina contemplates the history of the feared and persecuted race that now stands before them. The skeletal reaper looms as the butler remains perfectly composed, easily predicting any desperate attempt at a magical escape. Heavy chains bite into their skin, prompting a frantic and useless demand for the restraints to be removed immediately. Nozomu is overwhelmed by a wave of self-loathing, regretting his hesitation to release his power before his allies were hurt. In the distance, a terrified Somia remains suspended in the air as the Reaper prepares to finalize the contract. The young girl flinches in sheer terror when the skeleton's hand reaches toward her to claim its stolen prize. Desperately, Iristina offers her own soul to the monster, begging it to spare her sister from its cruel fate. Nozomu clenches his jaw until blood drips, pleading with the vampire to stop the theft of an innocent life. Shock and horror consume the young warriors as they witness the skeletal hand finally closing in on the floating girl. Floating in a state of shock, Somia stares vacantly while the dark ritual reaches its final and tragic moment. Nozomu steels his resolve, refusing to let another person he cares about suffer before his very eyes. His heart beats frantically as he reaches his absolute limit, the sound of his pulse echoing like thunder. Memories of Iristina's dying mother and her sacred promise to protect her sister flood his failing consciousness. He recalls accepting Shino's final wish, realizing he cannot keep living as a coward who abandons everything. The weight of Iristina's selfless devotion to Somia pushes him past the brink of his own mental exhaustion. Tears of frustration burn his eyes as he witnesses the girl he respects slowly slipping away into darkness. Iristina offers her entire being for a miracle, her silent plea for salvation reaching the depths of Nozomu's soul. A desperate roar for help shatters the air as the young warrior finally breaks his self-imposed internal seals. The surrounding stone walls and magical barriers explode outward with a deafening and violent structural crash. Nozomu's fingers tightly grip his katana as a massive surge of spiritual energy begins to swirl uncontrollably. Battered and broken, Iristina gazes upward in absolute disbelief at the sudden and overwhelming change in atmosphere. Mars watches in stunned silence, his wide eyes reflecting the terrifying power currently radiating from his childhood rival. Even the immortal vampire butler recoils in pure shock, unable to comprehend the divine force manifesting before him. Freed from his shackles, Nozomu stands amidst a hurricane of pure chi that rivals the legendary Dragon King. He lowers his head, his breathing steady as he prepares to unleash the full extent of his suppressed power. The young dragon slayer moves in a blinding blur of speed, his presence vanishing from the butler's sight. Lugato shifts his gaze frantically, his supernatural reflexes barely able to track the human's impossible and lethal movements. Nozomu sprints across the battlefield with a single, focused intent to dismantle the dark contract once and for all. A web of silver light carves through the void, representing a masterclass display of high speed and precise swordplay. The skeletal familiar is instantly shredded into 1,000 fragments by the overwhelming force of his ultimate strike.